Hi everyone and welcome to Trash Talk. I'm your host Richard Lewis. If it's the first time you're tuning in or because it's been so long, maybe you just forgot what the show is actually about, I'll explain the premise. This is the show where you, the eSports enthusiast, get to tell me your opinion about everything eSports, and I listen to it and then I basically tell you why you're wrong. I'm gonna take all sorts of calls today. I don't want to even lay out what's been going on in esports, but there's some particular hot topics of discussion. Obviously, we've got lots of things going on in League of Legends at the moment, including Crum stepping down, and lots of talk about Dignitas with Skara coming out and saying that him and Odee have had a bit of a falling out. But also as well, we've got more match fixing shenanigans in CSGO. These are two very kind of big things that are happening right now. These are the specters that are hovering above us like a dark cloud. With me, as always, is my loyal producer, Sam. Sam, mate, you're a bit under the weather, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Sound like a walking disease at the moment, but it's good to be back to do a trash talk for once, finally.
Is it good?
Well, as good as it can be, just having my head pounded against the curb for an hour and a half.
Mate, Big Hungry's coming, I'm sure. So
You better be.
I know how much you love him. Sam, I think we'll just jump straight into it, mate. We'll rip off the band-aid,
Right.
and we'll see how it goes. So, who's the first caller, and what do they want to talk about?
Right, first we have Eric Cherry, and he wants to talk about NIP's comeback into the CSGO scene, and presumably more about CSGO in general, too.
Okay, cool. Let's do it then. Hi there, Eric. Can you hear me?
Oh, it's not here yet. Give him a sec.
I will.
Alright, if I get subbed out.
Yeah, latest, latest, Eric. You suck, you asshole. Who's the next caller?
Hasori, and he wants to talk about Team Liquid and why going 0-2 was the worst possible start for them, obviously, and how Piglet's chances in NA are, and how he's already getting hate.
Okay, then. Well, yeah, this is Warhood, one of the regulars in our channel, so I'm hoping this will be a good call. If not, I might have to reevaluate that relationship and ban him. Can you hear me, Warhood, mate? You there?
Yeah, Sam, you're not even going to tell me I'm coming on?
Bitch, you do it live. I didn't even know you were gonna come on. Nobody answered the calls. Nobody fucking tells me what I want to talk about. I'm just done with this show.
Awesome.
So I understand you've got some thoughts about Team Liquid and Piglet. One of those thoughts being that the worst thing that could have happened to them was that they got off to the start that they got off to, whereas I think most people would be like, that's actually a good start. So why is it a bad thing?
So, first off, I just wanted to ask you, how would you handle a situation where the sub, like you have a sub, because the whole thing about Keith McBreath was that they built the team around him both times, both games. Do you think that was the right thing to do? Or would you rather have them done something like just we're gonna do our team comps and you're gonna be in the back shooting things as an AD carry?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think what you need to remember is in any team game, a team is only as strong as the weakest link in the chain. So therefore, if you don't have a great deal of confidence in someone's ability and you do all you can to effectively supplement them and to kind of paper over the cracks in their game, that often isn't a bad strategy. It's kind of all successful teams aren't just aware of their strengths; they're aware of their weaknesses. So building the team around a player who isn't going to be there for particularly long, while it certainly could have some long-term impact in terms of they're not going to be as well drilled in other areas. I think to get the results on the board, that was probably the right thing to do.
Exactly. That's exactly what I thought. And that is why I don't think Liquid did as well as the week one, because they let Keith dictate what they were gonna do. He was gonna play champs he was comfortable in and play what it was. So you didn't get really a full view of what the macro strategy of what Team Liquid was. So when you come out now winning both games, you're going to have, oh my God, this team's going to, as you saw on Reddit and as you saw it talking on here and talking on First Blood and other, that Team Liquid's going to be very good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Piglet coming back. And as we saw the drama with the first game where he didn't have his room page, masteries, both set up and didn't even notice it in the game and didn't even notice it till Reddit pointed it out to him.
Mm.
And so you have this person who's probably, and you've more traveled than me, so you can tell me how long probably a jet lag will last for something like that. He was not ready for week 1.
Mm-hmm.
So you're coming back now and you have all this weight now lifted onto Piglet that, oh, they're getting this star 80 carry from Korea coming back into a team that's already like clicking on all cylinders, going 2-0, beating all these teams, top ranked teams already. They're gonna just destroy it for the rest of the season. When first off, you're gonna have Piglet now going 0-2 this week, which is gonna probably hurt the team's confidence. Even though I think a lot of their problems came from their champ select at this point, and then came furthermore at that now he's gonna have to be like, well, is Piglet gonna rebound? Because that's what all the league casters are gonna talk about. Can Piglet rebound from his basically really not being there in those games? Because he did not really do literally anything. He was like what 0-1 one game and then 0-2 the other game.
Yeah,
reverse orders.
Yeah, I mean, I get the point you're making. I think, of course, it is worth probably remembering that the season it is pretty long, and if you look at the people at the top of the league, no one's gone undefeated, everyone's dropped a game, and Team Liquid are there kind of level with Winter Fox, Team Impulse, and Team 8. Right now, I certainly think Team Liquid have a stronger roster than any of those teams, and I think they'll pull ahead. There's certainly teams that have bigger problems than Team Liquid. And, lest we forget, Cloud9 are below them at 1-3, along with Coast, who spent big to get out of Challenger, and Team Dignitas, who've just lost crumbs. So I don't think Team Liquid will be too worried right now, and I think they've got plenty of time to put things right. I definitely agree that it's not ideal to have to change personnel, and it would have been a lot better if Piglet's visa issues had been sorted out well in advance. But I still think Team Liquid are going to be right up there come the end of the season, simply because we've seen many a top team get off to a bad start, and they find their rhythm, they find what champs work for them, they find a team comp that works for them, and they hit stride. I'm pretty sure it'll happen with Team Liquid as well.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you. Like, I'm not like, oh my God, push the panic button yet. And I'm a Team Liquid fan. I was a Team Curse fan, so I came over to Team Liquid when Steve merged with Liquid. But it's more what I worry about, and you see it a lot. And I guess like I don't want to like Reddit, oh my God, it's cancer, but they're already talking about like, oh, it's this classic like the Korean syndrome, or whatever you want to make the name up for it, is when hyped Korean comes over to America, doesn't do well. Hyped Korean makes bank for a season. Hyped Korean goes back to Korea.
Yeah,
and that's already been talked about with Piglet. He hasn't made there was of course the problems with him. Like the video they shot about him having like homesickness and like not making friends really well, and all that. But it's really that Piglet needs, I think, a lot of that. And I'm not sure, like I said, you can tell he was probably not even aware of what time it was in the LCS arena when he was playing. That's probably how like culture shocked he is at this point. And you'll see it pick up as it goes on. He'll like adapt. I'm sure this week he's going to do much better than he did last week. I don't know who they're playing, but I'm assuming they're going to see them win again. this week.
I wonder as well, though. I mean, you know, there's Piglet's an interesting character. There's lots of things that maybe people don't know about him. You know, it's been widely reported that he was, you know, a huge. You know, he loved to practice, loved to grind. You know, he would spend the bulk of the day practicing and would only get a few hours sleep. Um, you know, to sort of keep his skills sharp. And I'm just wondering if, you know, the routine he finds himself in, you know, in the Team Liquid house with the rest of his team, plus, like you say, you know, the culture shock of coming over and, you know, getting into American, you know, the American way of life, plus the way that LCS is very different to, you know, how OGN works. You know, I think there's lots of factors that would ebb away at his ability to be the best, but there's no denying his inherent quality. I think it would be incredibly sad if people were really applying pressure, you know, to a former world champion after 2 games in a different region. It's obviously going to take a lot of time, and you know, and I don't know what kind of setup they've got in the Team Liquid house, but I imagine it's very different to anything he's used to, because we've talked about this multiple times, the difference between the Korean you know, background and the way things are done in the NA. I mean, it's not a particularly well kept secret that a lot of team houses in North America and some in Europe too are effectively glorified frat houses. You know, like they've got you know, people like to party, people like to socialize and drink and hang out, and that's cool. But it isn't really like that in Korea, where they have you know, very disciplined setups and curfews and everything else. So you know, I say give him time. I think he'll settle in. I think all it'll take is that first win, and in particular that first good performance, and I think they'll kick right on up the table.
All right. Yeah. Before I get out of here,
Mm,
there is one last thing I wanted to ask you, and this maybe be this coming out of nowhere. Would you have subbed if you were the coach slash manager of Team Liquid?
mm.
Would you have subbed Keith in for another week while Piglet got adjusted? Because I don't think we see that topic brought up, but I think that is something that should be discussed when people are coming back from Korea and that whole time zone trying to make it up and only having literally
Mm.
maybe a week of practice, not even a week of practice in between those sort of things.
Yeah, I mean, I have to be honest. I mean, look, it's easy to say this now and look like I'm some sort of managerial
Yeah.
guru, because you know, hindsight's always 2020. But yeah, absolutely. I think that's not uncommon in sports as well. You know, when you bring in a new player, a star player, and you're getting them adapted from a foreign country, actually how it works in any other sport is you would use them sparingly. You wouldn't necessarily throw them into the starting lineup. You know, if you sign a Brazilian soccer sensation, you wouldn't throw him just straight into the Premier League and necessarily expect it to work. You would give him 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. You'd let them settle, you'd let them adjust, and then eventually they would feel comfortable and they would slot into the team and slot into the system and get used to the pace of play. And obviously, League of Legends, you know, you can't really do that. You can't pause the game halfway through and say, right, we're taking Keith out and we're going to put Piglet in because we've got a lead now. You know, like you're never going to have that option. So I think the next best thing would have been probably to keep Keith on. He played brilliantly well, and there's no doubt about that. And they looked they looked a good team with him in the side. And perhaps I don't know, maybe after going 0-2 this week, what they'll do is maybe they'll think, actually, that system we used to support Keith, maybe we could apply that system to Piglet as well. Because if we do, then, you know, he's even better than Keith in theory, and therefore we'll be a much stronger team. But it might be that, you know, I have no idea. But yeah, I probably would have kept Keith in the side for another week. I
All
don't
right,
see what the harm would have been.
yeah, I don't see. I see that was my logic, and as you said, it's hindsight's 2020.
Mm.
But you really, worst comes to worst, you like the worst case scenario, Keith shits the bed, and then you're like, okay,
Yeah.
well that was a 1 week aberration. Let's
Yeah.
never talk about Keith ever again. Let him go
I
back
mean,
down to
yeah,
the
but
challenger
but of
divisions.
course, I mean, the other problem would have been, you know, if Keith had shit the bed, Team Liquid would have been criticised for not putting Piglet in sooner.
That is okay.
So you can't really win. I mean, this is the thing that I don't know. People need to always remember here. It's like any decision you make, if the outcome isn't favorable, people will then look back at the decision and say it was the wrong thing to do. But that isn't always the case. I mean, the great thing about sports and competition is you can make all of the right decisions and still lose. You know, it's just one of those things, and I think I think Team Liquid will be disappointed, sure, but again, there's bigger, or well, not bigger, but you know what I mean. There's more prominent organizations in the league that have got much bigger problems than Team Liquid, and I think they'll bounce back next week. I think Piglet will have a little bit more under his belt, and I think they'll do okay. And like I say, I easily place them top 4 this season. Where in that top 4, I don't know. I don't really feel comfortable because because if you'd asked me after 4 games, would CLG be top, I'd have said no. And if you'd said that Gravity would have been up there as well, I would have said no. So the league at the moment, it's a series of anomalies, and I think we need to give another. I think you shouldn't look at the table really until at least 8-10 games have been played.
Yeah, agreed.
So,
I just wanted to point out something because I'm reading the Twitch chat as this goes. And Kami, the other mod, raised a very good point about why you shouldn't have kept Keith in as a sub.
Why is that?
For that week. Team Liquid, he's a part of their challenger team, and that they're in the middle of qualifiers right now. So if he was playing on the main roster, he cannot be playing on the challenger roster as well. So I just want because that's
this is another ongoing problem, really, isn't it? I mean, I think there needs to be a much more clearer distinction about what constitutes a sub, and I think teams need to really, I know this isn't necessarily favorable for the players that agree to this, but I think there should be players that are ultimately substitutes. And they're there and they're on the roster and they don't necessarily play for any other teams because, we've seen, for example, like with the Fusion and the Chunky situation, crazy shit can happen, conflict of interest can arise, and you get a situation like this where maybe Team Liquid were actually thinking about keeping Keith in the side and they don't have that option. So we either say, well, poor choice of substitute, even though they went 2-0 with him in the first week, or we say, that really the player, there should be a reward for being a sub that, outweighs being a starter in a challenger team.
So I just wanted to make this, are you saying something similar to the fashion that Winter Fox has Glebe in right now, where he's not a part of a challenger team, but he's actually officially their sub for whatever, if that Korean ever comes over?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. It's like I think there's enough talent out there, in my opinion. There's enough players out there which would welcome the chance to just be a sub, to just kind of hang around the peripheries of a team. Subs get salaries as well. They're provided for with the block payments that Riot put out there. So you can have somebody on a salary, doesn't need necessarily to match the same as the starting player, but it would prevent any of these issues where, because again, look, we talk about the evolution of League of Legends as a sport all the time, and people are talking about collegiate leagues and things like this. Actually, there needs to be squads. I see a lot of people have named substitutes, and basically what substitutes are used for is when everything else goes fucking terribly wrong, that's when the sub comes in, or when a player has a tantrum and leaves, that's when a sub comes in. It shouldn't be like that. A manager should be looking at a squad of players and be like, okay, well, my jungler's playing like ass and we're losing games because of it. Fortunately, I've got a substitute who's a jungler. I'll give him a run of games and see if we get any better and see if we improve. That doesn't happen. It's like, the substitutes effectively are only there for worst case scenarios. That's not how substitutes operate in any other sport. So I think this is part of a much bigger problem. I think, League of Legends collectively, organizations collectively, the league collectively, Riot, everybody needs to come together and sort of address that problem, because we absolutely need substitutes for teams, I think. So there are fresh options. So you don't get stuck into a rut of results when things clearly aren't working and then have to drop a player partway through a season and go into this awkward, recruitment phase, which disrupts everything. It fucks over the Challenger League. It fucks over the team that have got to find a player. I think we need a bit more attention paid to substitutes. Like for example, Dignitas haven't just lost a jungler; they've lost a captain in the form of Crumbs, and they're big shoes to fill. They're going to be scrambling to recruit someone in time for the next set of games. It's just a real awkward situation. If they had a decent substitute on the bench, maybe somebody could have slotted in and take the pressure off a little bit. So I think. If you're a substitute in an LCS team, I think it might be better if you don't play in a challenger team, to be honest.
I think that's an interesting point to bring up. Is that similar? And I don't know if you'll know this, but maybe the chat knows this, or even Sam knows this. Is that similar to how OGN works now? Is that how? Because I'm not sure. I don't understand really the OGN format.
Yeah, I think you have a team of 8 players, I think. You can submit into OGN, and you can rotate the other 3 even in between series, because every game's a best of 3 now. So you can sub out whoever you want during the actual game, not just in between.
So is that, Richard, what you're trying to say should be maybe looked at to being addressed in the upcoming off seasons for the LCS?
Yeah, I'd like to see some, I'd like to see squads take responsibility for having substitutes in place, and like I say, actually play around with them. A friend who's listening to this call right now has tweeted at me saying EG had the right idea of changing out Snoopy for Shaka when results were bad back in Season 3 summer in EU, and that's right. You can think of a few teams that have done it, but ultimately it should be par for the course. If this is a sport and you've got a squad of players, then I don't think you should necessarily be out there. I mean, okay, I it's really weird because I don't agree with the transfer window in football. I don't agree with it. I think it actually empowers the bigger clubs and acts to the detriment of smaller clubs, but and it artificially inflates the value of players. So in football, I don't like it, but I'd actually like to see a transfer window or something similar in league. I think where you have to nominate an entire squad of players, all of whom are salaried, maybe on a sliding scale. You've got your franchise players who get more, and then you've got your subs who get less. And that's your named squad at the start of the season. You can't do anything. You can't change it. You can't tweak it. You've got to use that collection of players for an entire split. And, because what happens when a player leaves or stands down or gets kicked or retires or gets sick or gets deported, whatever crazy shit's going to go on in the league, it fucks everyone over because all the challenger players are like, me. They stop focusing on the Challenger League. That gets disrupted. Talent comes through. It seems to me that it's not an ideal system right now. Where if one transfer movement in one team in one league has the chance to cause this massive shockwave that upsets the ecosystem, I think there's something wrong with the system that's in place.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, of course, you mentioned I'm an American and you mentioned football, so kind of glass overlook as you talk about the transfer scene because I have no idea really. I mean, I follow it I'm a decent sports person, so I follow the idea of Benzema just transferred, I believe, to some other team for the rest of the season or something like that. But I don't understand the inner workings of it. So I can't really agree or disagree with what you if that's good. But if that's gonna work, a transfer scene where, from my understanding, is you nominate a set of players and then they go on loan from a team for the rest of the season.
That can happen as well. I mean, I think this could be problematic, but it's a system which could well translate into league. I think probably what we need to do is adopt again, I've just been told OGN rules are that you have to have a squad of 10 players. So
yes, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just want to I think I do remember a little bit of it. Is they have a squad of 10 players. you nominate 5 to be your starting roster, which is your like your STK, and then you have the other 5 go and compete in the amateur league.
Mm-hmm.
I believe. In chat, if I'm wrong, you can say that I'm a jackass, but I think that's how it works. And then you can bring them in every time, every game, and change them out like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could be. I think the important thing though is to literally have those options. No matter what the scenario, no matter what the situation, and why couldn't you have players, like come in just for like 1 or 2 games again, like happens in sports? Why couldn't we do that? Let's say for example, you've got a really good player who's specifically good with one champion and you know that the team you're going to play against is also specifically good with another champion, and the person who's good with that champion, it just happens to counter that champion, and or whatever the fucking scenario is. Basically, like you could bring that player in for that game, and he could obviously run riot in just that one game, and then you drop him out again, and that's a win on the board that maybe ordinarily wouldn't have been, and that's that's the kind of thing I'd like to see in League of Legends, make it a bit more tactical. I know obviously we've got to take baby steps. We've got coaches stood behind the teams now, holding up books with nothing inside to make it look like they've fucking, actually done some homework or whatever, or walking around with clipboards and tucked under their arm. And it's a big step towards again legitimizing it, showing there's a bit more to it. Even though I think there's a lot of artifice and pantomime almost about that particular decision. But yeah, I'd like to see substitutes be part of a squad. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for Keith, but if Keith was getting like an LCS salary to just be a substitute, for Team Liquid and come in and out of the team. And let's not forget, Keith's a bot lane specialist. He could come in, as a support player as well if anything went wrong, or a AD carry. I think he's a very versatile player and exactly the kind of person you would want as a substitute. Now, maybe he'd want to, if that was an option, be a full-time sub if the rewards were there. And he gets a chance to impress on the biggest stage and whatever, and not have to go through the rigmarole of Challenger, which frankly is a fucking chore. So I don't know. I'd be interested to get some players' perspectives on it, whether they'd rather be a sub for an LCS team than a starter in a challenge team. I'd like to pick some player brains about that.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I think I don't really have anything to say at this point, so
yeah, no worries.
This is where we should end it.
Yeah, good, brilliant. That's exactly what we like, mate. So I'll let you jump out. Thanks a lot for the call. It brought up lots of good points and a bit of a side debate to the original point. But thanks a lot, Warhood. So basically, yeah. Oh, no worries, dude. You take care. So basically, there we go. To summarize what we talked about, obviously Keith McBrief, we'll just call him Keith, jumps in to Team Liquid while Piglet's having his visa problems or whatever and isn't ready to come and play. They go 2-0. Everything's looking great. They built an entire team plan around him. Then Piglet, the chosen one, comes in, slots into the team, and they go 0-2. And Keith couldn't have played because he had challenger games that he had to absolutely adhere to. So I think this throws up lots of interesting problems. But I think the main thing I want to take from that particular call and go on the record as saying is that give Piglet time, and I think he's going to be huge in NA LCS. It's not going to happen straight away. We've seen lots of Koreans, struggle to adapt to life in America and in particular American team houses. But if anyone's got the talent and the ability and the dedication to put those problems right, it's Piglet. So we'll certainly see where he ends up. Sam, do you have any thoughts? Anything you want to talk about that?
I think the main thing you addressed that I agree with is the substitute thing. I find it was really weird how subs are used. They're basically like, if someone really can't play, then it's a bit...
Yeah, like dies, basically.
Yeah. People have this myth that, like, these 5 players can only play with each other. There is no way they can get synergy with anyone else. Like,
yeah.
You could pick and slot people in like all the time. Like if you have a jungler who's really good at early, he's like, right, this guy, he doesn't ward very much in late game, but early he's sick, he smashes everyone in lane. We put him in up against people with strong lanes. If you're against people where you think the lanes are going to win, you put the late game jungler. I don't understand why they don't swap people much easier.
Yeah, I agree as well. I mean, I think there's a lot of mythology kind of put around, like you say, the whole team dynamic, like, oh, we can only play. I mean, like back in the start of Counter-Strike, and again, this never really took off, but we had my old team, Excite UK. This is back in 2006. We had a squad of players, and we paid for our entire squad of 7 players to go to LAN, even though obviously it's a 5-man game. And we had people who were good on certain maps. So whenever a map came up in a game, we'd be like, right, you're in. You know, Bushaw, it's Dust 2. You need to get in. You're dropped, and that's how we would do it. You know, we would swap players around based on the maps. We weren't particularly successful, but I think that's about the fact we were kind of just a little bit shit overall. Not that we were, you know, like I still think that's a system that could work. Having, you know, role players, if you like. You know, and I don't mean neck-bearded Dungeons and Dragons people. You know, in a squad for a particular scenario should it arise. But it's interesting. You know, look, League of Legends is evolving all the time. I think we'll see where it goes. But I'd like to see that OGN system kind of replicated throughout each region. Anyway, let's do another call. Who have we got and what do they want to talk about?
We're going to try Eric Cherry again. He wants to talk about ninjas in pajamas, assembly, and match fixing in CSGO.
Oh, Christ.
Bit of a heavy one on the end.
The Holy Trinity.
Well, hello there.
Hi, Eric. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Richard?
Not too bad. I just had a horrible game of Counter-Strike just before the show. It just left me really deflated. I just got trolled by some guy for like 30 minutes who said he was going to find my IP and have me killed.
That was me.
So,
Russia?
No, he was from the UK.
Oh, okay.
So I mean,
I traced it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've been reported to the cyber police. I'm kind of terrified. But yeah. So other than that, mate, I'm great. You know, feeling a bit better today. I had a great time out in Finland, which obviously we're going to talk about in a little bit. But I understand you want to talk about ninjas in pajamas, and they obviously won the ASUS Republic of Gamers Winter Invitational. They looked very good in the process, easily for me the best and most consistent team there. What is it you want to talk about?
I guess just like going forward with NIP in 2015. Do you think they're ever going to be able to take? Do you think they're going to be able to get first place again consistently with LDLC now in the US?
Yeah,
pick up a Michael.
I absolutely do. I think 2015 we're going to see Ninjas in Pajamas back on top. And what's interesting is, I actually think when they do go ahead and do that, and I'm really confident they will. I think it's going to be a much bigger achievement, given that the scene is going to be infinitely stronger because we're going to have all these big organizations in supporting teams. You know, the North American guys are going to turn up and start playing regularly at events because they've got the backing of big organizations. I think when NIP get a run of trophies under their belt in 2015, and you know, I really think people need to watch out for them at Katowice. I think that their achievements this time around in the second coming of NIP are going to be far greater and should be rated higher than their first lot of achievements, when realistically they were the only professional team, truly professional team for a very long period of time indeed.
Do you think we can place NIP as like the second best team right now?
I got to be honest. I think. This is a tough one for me. I'm going to be very intrigued. Like I think obviously on recent results, you have to say that LDLC are the best team in the world still. Absolutely. I think based on everything else I've seen, I think placing NIP at second, I don't think that's bad, but I mean they're definitely top 3, like hands down. In my opinion, I don't think anyone would argue with that. Now, of course, the only other person that's really going to have anything to say about that is Fnatic, and you know this is a bit awkward to talk about, so I won't labour the point. But Flusher has took a pretty big dip in form lately. We've seen
because he doesn't. That's because he doesn't have his hacks.
Well, I wasn't going to say that, but he's.
I'm just kidding.
No, no, but I mean, yeah,
but he does though.
Well, look, Far be it from me to pile on the hate he's already received. I think people know my views about it. I haven't heard a convincing explanation for the clips I've seen yet, and when I do, I'll be inclined to assimilate it. But for right now, I'm as confused as a lot of people are as to what it could be. But he has had a dip in form lately. His KPD ratio has been particularly bad. He was statistically the worst performing player at MLG Aspen. And it was worded to me by another pro who was laughing about it in Finland, saying not just the worst, but the worst of the worst. So I think Fnatic have got a few, kinks that they may need to iron out. Now, Nip, on the other hand, they started out with, a new player, somebody that was coming in and was having to, yeah, because it was a very different prospect when they had Fifth Lauren, okay? Because Get Right and Forest and everyone else could just say to Fifth Lauren, here's what we want to do. This is what's left. And Fifth Lauren would go, yeah, no problem. I'll do that. I'll do that. You need an AWPer? I'll do that. You want me to play rifle in this position? I'll do that. He never said no to anything, which is why it was one of the reasons that contributed to him being statistically the weaker player. I mean, he was the weakest in that lineup of 5 anyway. But one of the things that contributed was he never really fought for the role he wanted. He just said, look, I'm a team player, whatever it takes, I'll do it. Now, Makalela's a bit of a different case because he's got a very different attitude and a different set of skills to Fifth Lauren. He's a very different player. So Nip had to kind of work around slotting him into the team and making him feel comfortable. And a few people had to reevaluate some stuff. And that's why we saw them be a little bit up and down at the first few tournaments when they brought him in. Now, though, based on what I've seen at the Asus Republic of Gamers, where he was, in my opinion, man of the match in the semi-finals for Nip and man of the match in the final for Nip. He's comfortable. He's bedded in. He's coping with the popularity, the scrutiny. All of Ninjas in Pajamas are loving him. And I'm telling you, this kid is really talented. And I just think Nip are going to be too strong for a lot of teams, Fnatic included, in their current state next time they go up against them.
So do you think we could put Michael Laley as like a top 3 opper?
Well, it's tough, man, because you've got fiends like Kenny S who are just ridiculous, but Makalele showed that I mean, you can argue about the how competitive the event was, in Finland, but he destroyed Titan. I mean, he comprehensively destroyed Titan. There was just no two ways about it. Now, he had numerous duels, numerous 1v1s with Kenny S in that sequence of events that led to them winning. And he beat him pretty much, I'd say 70, 80% of the time. When they had a 1v1 duel, Makalele came out on top. Now, you can't take one game in isolation and say that player is better than that player, because I don't believe that. I think Kenny S is still the better AWPer. But if beating the best AWPer, isn't a testament to you being one of the best, then I don't know what is. So I think people gave Makalele a lot of stick, but he's, when he's in confident mood, he'll hit his shots. He won't miss.
So, I guess going forward into 2015 as well, do you think maybe we could see a resurgence of Fnatic coming to the top again? Because you already mentioned that, Flusha's had a lackluster performance. Do you think Fnatic's going to get it together? Because towards the end of 2014, they were consistently the best team, and had they actually done a rematch against LDLC, we don't even know. They could have been first or second at the tournament.
So what do you think? I mean, do you think Fnatic are going to come back on top?
I think Fnatic can consistently make top 3, but I don't really see them making first or second place again, or at least not consistently. I feel like it's going to be LDLC and NIP battling it out. Now, I don't really know if NIP's ever going to get... I don't know if NIP will get first place consistently. I think they'll always be trading off with LDLC, because I think LDLC is a pretty fantastic team.
Yeah, I agree with you, absolutely. But here's the thing. I think we're going to enter into a phase where, as I said, I don't think we're going to see, just one team, win, consistently for like 6 events in a row, kind of like we're used to in CSGO. I think the field is a lot more competitive right now, and I genuinely believe that. Yeah, are Fnatic going to win a tournament in 2015? Absolutely. But I think NiP will win more than they will. I think NiP are a stronger team, have much better talent. All the guys, they're rejuvenated. They've got this new player in there. They're absolutely loving playing with him. They're all getting on, incredibly well, and they're excited. They had a little holiday, a little break, and they're back to business right now. And when NiP get down to business, it's frightening, especially when you consider, and I'm not saying I have any insider knowledge on this, but they've got some older players in there that they're getting a little bit older. This could realistically be one of the last years for some of the players, maybe. In the same way that Fifth Lauren made the decision to retire, maybe some other people in NiP are thinking, yeah, we'll get paid this year, and then because you're going to have all of these signature stickers and everything else, and then maybe we call it quits. But they're going to want to have a really big year in 2015 with everything that they've got going for them. And like I say, I wouldn't rule them out making it to the final of Katowice at all. So, as I just think it's going to be a real exciting year. I think that's where I stand on it. I don't think one team's going to dominate, but I think it's going to be between LDLC and NiP for which team wins the most tournaments in 2015, and I think they'll both be really close to each other.
I see. I want to get on to one last point, since I guess you're kind of like a CSGO analyst. I noticed that the MLG X Games and Aces ROGs, NiP was. I've seen this before, but I haven't seen it very often. But it seemed like in the final of MLG X Games between NiP and LDLC, it seems like every single round NiP and LDLC were always buying double ops, whereas I'm pretty sure in the past you never really saw that unless one team was just really far ahead. But it seemed like NiP and LDLC were committed to that strategy every single time they had the money. Like, why is that?
Well, look, I think part of it is you've got to judge each situation, based on its merits and based on the opponents you're playing, based on the situation, And I think it's like you say, when they get far ahead, they feel like they're hitting all their shots and they're really confident. Yeah, they'll pick up 2 AWPs and they'll steamroll over people. That's one of the good things about Makalele actually joining NiP. He gives them that option because they're way more confident in his AWPing because he is a main AWPer. That actually, they don't need to always double up, but sometimes Patrick, Forrest, he'll be like, yeah, actually, we're hitting all of these shots on this site. That's fine. He's not going to miss. It's not a problem. Even if they rush him, he's gonna handle it. So he'll pick up an AWP and play aggressive. And he's one of those players from back in his Quake days who've got just sick, one bullet aim. So Forrest is a very competent AWPer. I don't know if he gets a lot of credit for that or not, but it's certainly something he can do. And I think, equally by the same token, one of the things I noticed about Makalele was when he was having a bad game, I've seen him do this a couple of times, like when he hasn't really been hitting his shots, he just puts the AWP down and switches to rifle and makes kills with that instead. So, it's again, I think it's like situational. The double AWP setup are coming in on some maps, but I talked to a few analysts, and on the desk actually during the Asus Republic of Gamers Winter Invitational, I was talking to Fifth Lauren about the double AWP setup on what maps is it appropriate for them and what it isn't. And we had some differing views. I think Zet disagreed a little bit on some of it, and then Anders came in and said something different. So I wouldn't say for there's a particular set meta yet. I think it literally is just a case of it plays to those teams' particular strengths because they've got players who can do that. I don't think it's necessarily something every team's going to adopt because that is the optimal way to play. I think it's just the optimal way to play for LDLC and NiP in particular.
Yeah, and like you mentioned with Makalele and the op, I also noticed that MLGX games, there were several times when Makalele would drop the op to Forest, and Forest would try to get like an opening pick on like Dust 2 near mid doors, and they need to hand the op back to Makalele, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed they've been trying that strategy out a lot.
Yeah,
But
yeah, and that's the beauty of having versatile players in your lineup. I'm interested to see what LDLC do because I think they're going to be in for a little bit of a culture shock based on what Mike Hastro will want them to do within terms of the organization because he's from a Call of Duty background where the players are huge stars, and I know Mike wants to make the LDLC players huge stars. They're going to need to be streaming more. They're going to need to be a bit more social media friendly. They're going to need to start doing interviews and stuff in English. And I think LDLC, the organization that they were at before, never really put any of those sorts of pressures or had any of those expectations. They just wanted them to go to events and win. Well, Mike's going to be a little bit more focused on, he'll give them all the tools for success, but he also wants them to be big stars and big ambassadors for his organization. So I'm just wondering whether they'll embrace that change or whether that might have a little bit of an impact on them in the short term while they adjust to those expectations. So it's going to be interesting, man. Like I said, 2015, this is going to be the best year for CSGO in terms of just raw competition, the talent, the organizations, the money that's flying around, the number of spectators. I think this is going to be like the year where we look back and we see CSGO as actually being right up there with League of Legends and perhaps even eclipsing something like Dota 2. And of course, let's not forget, there's probably going to be some type of international style event announced as well this year. So I think it's going to be huge. I think 2015 is going to be just a big year for the game.
NIP is also going to be way better because not only have they gotten a new player in Michael Laley, but a lot of the Star NA players just got banned like a week ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So less competition for NIP, man.
Yeah, well, and let's not forget the Epsilon. I mean, I don't know if you consider Epsilon competition for anybody, but of course, there's going to be some sad times ahead. I think for them, I don't really see how they can't, at the very least, get banned by the leagues again. Whether Valve do intervene, I think the decision they made for the Americans was American players was effectively to empower all of their leagues and partners to be able to police it themselves and make a decision based on the evidence. But ESEA have deferred their, the investigation to Valve again, and I'm pretty sure Valve aren't going to want to do this every time there's an accusation of match fixing. It's going to be hugely time consuming for them. So I'd like to think ESEA could conduct their own investigation, look at the facts, look at the fact we've even got a confession and make a decision based on that. And I'm sure that decision will be emulated by ESL and everybody else. So we'll see where it goes. But anyway, look, Eric, it's always great to talk to you, man. I know you've called in before, so
yeah.
It's nice to get your thoughts. And like I say, I'm sure you're going to be in for a real treat in 2015 if you're a CSGO enthusiast. So thanks for calling, and I hope to hear from you again sometime soon.
All right. Catch you later, Richard.
Yeah, no worries, brother. All the best. So there you go. Lots of things in that call, but bottom line is, I got a good feeling that NIP are going to be back on top. And certainly, if not top, not far from it. This is going to be a huge year for Counter-Strike, no doubt about that. And I think NIP are going to be, really at the forefront of pushing it and being successful. So, I think it's going to be pretty sweet. Sam, I won't ask you your thoughts about CSGO because you don't really like it, do you?
Yeah, I do. I watch every event. I just shit at the game. That doesn't mean I can't like the game.
Come on, let's be honest. Let's be real.
Well, I do like Counter-Strike. What are you talking about?
Thought you said that, people who play Counter-Strike are all retards.
When did I say this?
I don't remember.
Maybe in a fit of rage in a matchmaking game.
Yeah, it might have been. But okay, I still want to ask you. Go on, what team do you support then?
NIP. Well, I support eSports, man. Like,
so
I have
vanilla,
4 jerseys for CSGO behind me. I have a Na'Vi jersey, a NIP jersey, a Fnatic jersey. Well, I don't have a 4th actually. I have 3. I just like eSports, man. I'm an eSports guy.
Do you wear them to bed?
No, I just bought them. I think I bought 2 of them at DreamHack actually. I was like, oh fuck it, why not?
Have you Have you ever put them all on at once?
No, I just cuddle them when the NIP are playing.
Fucking make me sick. But yeah, come on. Like, you can't just support Nip, man. That's like being a Manchester United fan. Sort your fucking life
Never
out.
do that. Fucking hell. I like Hellraisers actually. Hellraisers is like an underdog team that I like. I like Doja. It's like
They're a good looking bunch. I can see.
harsh
I can see
bastard.
why you'd be. Anyway, we'll do one more call, I think, before the break. Sam, who have we got, and what do they want to talk about?
Right, next we have Dallin Kimball, and he sent me like an essay of topics.
Did you say Darth Maul?
No, Dallin Kimball.
Okay, right.
Right, and he said a lot of topics, but the one we're gonna go with is CLG, Rush Hour looking good, Zion Spartan finally on a team without Shifter, Xmithy returning to small form, and is Link gonna shit the bed again?
Okay. Lots to talk about there, and I do like the
Shit in the
image
bed.
of Link shitting the bed, actually. So, Dallin, can you hear me, man?
Oh, yes.
Hey, here he
Yeah,
is. Yeah, you're a little bit quiet, actually. Is there any way you can turn yourself up? I'm a little bit hard of hearing because I'm old.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on a laptop. Is that a little better?
Yeah, that is a little better. That's great.
I-
So, are you a CLG fan by any chance, Dallin?
A bit. Although I was originally a Vulcan fan.
Okay. But so why is CLG the topic of interest then? Tell me about your thoughts and observations.
Well, I see CLG as kind of like the abusive boyfriend. You know, I rooted for them the last season going in, and why I say now that I'm not sure if I'm a CLG fan is just I'm not sure if I can go back if I'm going to get hurt again.
Hmm. Well, yeah, mate, I don't think you're necessarily alone in that way of thinking. In fact, lots of CLG fans have said the same thing. It certainly is a bittersweet relationship. Um, you know, it's crazy because they're one of the biggest organizations, you know, in North America. That they have had so much. Again, I hate to use the word potential to achieve great things for so long, but I've got to be honest, it really does seem like they're being serially mismanaged. Like the people behind CLG just don't really seem to have a fucking clue what they're doing.
Yeah, there seems to be like a chronic problem that they have where they get the synergy, they get some really good players, they have these amazing matches. We can think back to, I believe, the summer split where CLG won a minus 30-minute game with just 4 kills to 0 deaths over Curse.
Yep.
You know, they have these amazing games, and then all of a sudden they just crash and burn, and you know everybody hates everybody, and it's really interesting to try and figure out where that comes from.
Mm. Well, I couldn't really give you too much insight. You know, I've had the pleasure to meet, I think, a couple of CLG players, but you know, I think one of the things that's always inherent within the team is they are a little bit that they're not a cohesive unit. They're not like a lot of other teams where it's like, hey, it's 5 of us, we're all bros. You know, they really try and sell that brotherly image to everyone else. They spend all their time with each other because, you know, they think that's how it's done. Actually, CLG doesn't necessarily buy into that, and you'll see people come into the team and actually feel quite isolated, like Seraph talked about. And I thought it was interesting, actually. Afromu said on his stream just before the start of the season when they were talking about renewing people's contracts. He said no one at CLG has even talked to me about renewing my contract. I don't know if I'm going to be playing for them next season. I mean, we all knew he would be, but I think even that's telling. Like, you know, you would go to one of your star players at some point and say, yeah, don't worry about next season, we are going to sign you. You know, you just let them know. So I think that they're a very strange team. They're almost like, I think probably is part of the problem in their inconsistency is they're kind of a bit, you know, disjointed. They don't necessarily operate like a team. They don't. There's nobody there to crack a whip, and there's no one there to sort of keep them together.
I think at least with the Afro Move situation that you just highlighted there, I think it's probably one of two things. It's either that everybody else just assumed it and nobody had really hinted that at Afro Move, and it was just kind of a thing that everybody else, you know, already knew in their minds. That, or is it just a bit of mismanagement by Hotshot GG, or I don't know, what do you think?
I don't know, man. I mean, look, they've made so many fucking mistakes. I mean, people don't even know the half of the shit that's gone on behind with CLG. I mean, one day I'm going to be able to tell that
Do
story.
tell. Do
Well, no,
tell.
I can't say these things because apparently it's not just you and me talking. Someone will make a little video of it. It'll go to the top of Reddit, and I'll be getting death threats from 12-year-olds again. So I'm not gonna go into it, to be honest with you, Dallin. But let's just say there's some interesting stories surrounding CLG and the management of CLG right from its inception through to the modern day, where the mismanagement, literally the mistakes that have been made are fucking startling. So things that we do know about recently, for example, I think they handled the whole poaching situation very poorly. And again, that's such an obvious oversight on their part, especially where Odee's concerned, who is a bit of a stickler for propriety. He's not going to let that kind of thing slide. All they
Did you
really
see
had
what
to.
was on Reddit today with
Yeah, I
Scara?
did.
His
I
video?
actually saw it last night before I went to bed.
Yeah. What
Um,
did you think about that? Because it sounded like, CLG just kind of got messed over by something that was really light-hearted.
oh, yeah, well, I, yes and no. I think this is the kind of thing you've got to take very seriously. Like, for example, if somebody was joking around about, hey, let's fix this game or whatever, and or yeah, let's cheat or let's split the money or whatever it was, even if it was a joke, because it could be construed as something that is inappropriate. There would need to be, you would still need to take some form of action against it, and the same for something like this. The fact that they did go to the player first and they did make an offer. you know it's they're the kind of things that do have to stop. Contracts have to be respected, and people's employers need to be treated with that kind of level of distance as well. If you want to hire somebody, you've got to get in touch with them, you've got to do it properly. That's just how it works in every other sport, and that's how it has to work, I think. So while I sympathize a little bit with Scara, like, it's never nice to confide in someone and say, I've had this offer, and then that person turns around and says, well, actually, they should have talked to me first. I'm now going to take action against that. I'm sure Scara felt a little bit, stupid and a little bit upset, actually. But, I don't necessarily blame Odee in that situation. I think you've got to protect your investment. That's how it has to be done. So, yeah, I mean, that could have all been avoided. Like, all you have to do is just go directly to Odee. That's all you have to do. And I have no idea why that didn't happen. It's not as if Hotshot doesn't know who he is. It's not as if they weren't already eyeing up, Zion Spartan. I mean, that was a move that was talked about for a long, long time. So I have no idea why the channels of communication for Scara were particularly closed off. And it just seems a very, again, like, just, it's almost like a hands-off thing. Like, I don't even know how hands-on Hotshot is anymore. I know he gets a lot
That
of
is a good
hate.
point.
Like, he gets a lot of hate for being like the guy to blame. But actually, we know Kelby, has been the guy pulling a lot of the strings.
It's
And obviously,
Matcom now, though, right? Kelby he went to something else, Good Game University or something, right?
yeah, well, he's at the Good Game Agency, but CLG are a part of the Good Game Agency as well. They're
Yeah, but CLG is now managed by their former art guy, Matt, right?
Yeah,
Matcom.
but I would still wager, based on what I know about things, I think Kelby would have some form of influence over the day to day with CLG. I mean, even though he's working for GGA, I'm sure he's maintained that level of relationship with CLG and has been involved in CLG business, even if it's not to the same degree that he used to be. So yeah, I don't know. I think part of the problem consistently with CLG is that actually they haven't had someone get hands on with the team. It's always been hands off, and I can understand that to a degree, because how on earth do you handle that sort of collection of egos?
Do you think Scara can?
No, frankly. I think Scara
I
comes
would
in
lean
and
towards
he's
that.
a manager in the sense like, hey, we're all buddies, we're all in this together. I don't know what he offers as a coach. I've got no insight to that. That isn't to say he doesn't offer anything. I just don't know what he does offer.
Isn't that what we talked about though? Is that part of their problem is they've never really been buddies. Is that what they need? Do they need the coach to make them all friends? Is this the lineup that they can finally be friends with?
Yeah, I mean, maybe Scarra can come in and make them all, have cups of tea together and hang out and all of that. But I think the problem's way more deep rooted than that. It's like, look, when Monte Cristo come in and they were playing well and they had that game that you talked about where it was like, hardly any kills and they won in under 30 and everyone was like, wow, the rotations were perfect. That must be the Monte Cristo effect. Actually, it turned out, that one of the things that I think was upsetting for Monte Cristo in particular was you couldn't necessarily coach those players. That you would give them all of the knowledge that they needed to improve, to play the game a certain way, and as soon as things went a little bit wrong, they just revert to type. They'd go, our way's the best way, we're just going to start doing it, and they wouldn't actually listen. I think Scar is going to encounter something similar because he's nowhere near as forceful a personality as Monte Cristo, and I couldn't possibly speak for whether he observes the game to a higher level than Monte Cristo, but based on what I've seen from Monte Cristo and his analysis, I think that'd be quite a tall order for a lot of people. So that'll be interesting. And then I think the other problem you've got is, like I say, this collection of egos. We've got Double Lift in there. We all know about that. It's not like, it's not like Afro Moo is a shrinking violet, I should say. We've got Link in mid who, his ego is always one of the issues in the team. So I don't know, man.
I think that was definitely the roster move, or rather not roster move, the lack of a roster move that everybody questioned the most was Link staying.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the having Xmithy in the jungle as well. I mean, that's working out at the moment. I don't know how long that's gonna realistically work. For them long term. It's really weird. I look at that team, and I don't think it's the strongest in the NA region, even though they're right at the top of the table right now. And I think there's problems just waiting to happen with CLG. And if they get a run of results against them, I think everyone's going to go on tilt and tunnel in, and they'll start to plummet down the table. I still don't think Link's been incredibly impressive. I think he's been better in the games they've played where I've watched them, but I still think he's got fundamental problems. I think, Zion Spartans look great. We always knew he would. And, like you say, Rush Hour have been doing really well in the bot lane, but I still think there's deficiencies in CLG, and they're a team that historically doesn't cope very well with defeat, with failure, and with pressure.
I agree on that as well. And bringing up a topic with, you remember the Thorin video where he did a lot about CLG and the problems they were having. He said what they really lacked was that second carry, and that it doesn't necessarily have to be from the mid lane. Do you think Zion Spartan is able to plug that hole, and then Link is able to just play the supportive mid laner instead?
It's tough, man. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the current lay of the land, you need the way the game works now. You can't just be reliant on fucking your sick top laner to come in and carry the game for everybody. You can't really rely on one player to do that anymore. And I think Zion Spartan is going to stand out and be that carry top laner that everyone raves about him for being. But Link has got to step up his game this season as well, because when he goes missing in games, like all of CLG's worst games last season when they nearly got relegated, the key factor was Link not showing up. And they had other problems, but the key one for me, as I saw it, as many others saw it, was Link not showing up. And that just shows how important that his role in the team can be. That if he's playing well, like he is, at the moment, not brilliantly well, not the level we all would expect for a CLG mid laner, but certainly better than he has been recently. If he can continue to play to this level or above, CLG will do all right. The problem is what's going to happen when he comes up against real big teams. What's going to happen when he comes up against actual world class players, and loses lane, and then goes on tilt, and then next week he's playing against someone who isn't quite as good, and this is the problem with Link. He's flattered to deceive for such a long time. I don't even know what his level is anymore. I really don't. I don't know if he's even got that extra gear that everyone's saying. Oh, he'll get there. He'll get there. I don't even know if he's ever going to get there. So I think
He's such an odd player after
yeah.
4 splits that we still can't quantify him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you think about it, every other player, like after 1 year, we pretty much know what they're all about. And then it just becomes, are they going to drop off because of time and practice and all the other stuff, or getting seduced by streaming or whatever it is? But it's always that, you know where the peak is, and then you watch them decline. I don't even think Link has hit his peak yet after 4 splits.
Yeah, and
You know?
if you were CLG right now, what would you do going into the next split? Because honestly, this split doesn't mean as much right now. It looks like CLG is at least going to finish, top 5 somewhere in there. But
Mm.
what would you do to fix the mid lane situation? Would you look to hope that Incarnation gets unbanned, pick him up, or try and get SKT to let go of Easy Hoon? Like, what would you do for CLG?
Well, I mean, the incarnation question. I mean, I'll have to remove that from the equation, because if it was down to me and my brain making the decisions, as soon as incarnation was unbanned and free and cleared to play, whichever organization you were in America or Europe, I'd break the bank to bring him in, because individually he'll wreck anybody. I believe. Like, seriously, I
Is there
think.
any mid laner you wouldn't replace for him in the
I
West?
mean, yeah. I mean, look, you've got your established, Western mid laners, where I think it would be incredibly hard to make an argument for dropping them for an unknown quantity. But you look at some of the organizations like, say, Cloud9, who I know they don't want to make roster changes, but High is a bit of a problem at the moment. He's not performing to the level Cloud9 need to be the North America's elite organization. I don't know if I would necessarily say, for example, trade out Bjergsen for Incarnation, but I'd certainly trade out High. I'd certainly trade out Link.
I think
That's
CLG, not knowing necessarily a lot of the in-house stuff and some of the background knowledge that you probably have, but I think CLG would, just the numbers from the players might actually be one of his best fits to look at.
yeah, yeah. I don't.
I mean,
I don't
he would
see
have
that.
a jungler who's used to camping mid lane, a top laner that's used to being left on the island and performing well, a bot lane that is one of the best laning bot lanes in the world. It sounds like that would be one of his best fits to go to.
Yeah,
Personally.
yeah, absolutely. But again, we keep talking about this this issue of cohesion. Can the team all be friends? And I actually think Incarnation, more than any other player, would probably need that around him. I think he'd need a support group, purely and simply because if for whatever reason he underperformed or the team was having a bad time, you know how the fans would react to that. It's like, oh, you should never have been a band. You're a cancer. You know how it is. So I think he would need a team that could support him, and a group of players he could get along with. I don't think necessarily he'd find that at CLG. But anyway, so just to remove the incarnation question from
Yeah.
it, here's what I would do at the end. I mean, first of all, they've made the decision now to give Link this split, and you're absolutely astute in your observation. This isn't a particularly important split in the grand scheme of things. Although obviously, you've got all your championship points and all of that, new stuff they brought in. But I think you've literally got to pull the trigger on Link if he doesn't perform this season. I think if it gets to the halfway point and it's abundantly clear that Link is, going to be classic Link, I think you need to start making phone calls to everyone, and you need to have a series of options in place to replace him at the end of the season. I also would say to CLG, they need to monitor the X-Smithy situation very closely, because while we all know, this is a jungler that was instrumental and helping get the team he used to play for to Worlds, in one of the biggest shocks sort of in NA. I think there's a big question mark about his viability long term. I don't think you can touch rush hour in the bot lane. Although I've always said I think one of the ongoing problems at CLG is the double lift effect. That in many ways he's bigger than the team, and I
I
think
honestly think that Doublelift's career would probably go a lot better if he'd ended up on another team a year ago, or even if he just eventually, you know, not that he wasn't good enough for CLG, but just any other team. Like sometimes change is just good for the change itself.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those things. Like we'll never know for sure, but I always felt that Doublelift was like, because he's so untouchable within the team. I just don't ever think you can have a player with that sort of untouchable status within a team and it function and it be healthy. I think that's always quite a dangerous precedent to set. And obviously we know Doublelift is CLG for life. Like he's not going to go anywhere, and I think he knows that as well. So it's almost as if other players have to kind of work around that. Like even if Doublelift wasn't to perform to the best of his abilities, in a game or in a season or in an important series, there's never any question that Doublelift is going to be scrutinized, pulled out, that he's never going to be part of CLG. His brand, as I said, is it's right. It's one of the biggest individual brands in NA just as a player. So we need to remove that. And I think Zion Spartan's going to crush people in the top lane, all year long. I think he's that good a player. But, Link and Xmithy, if we get to the halfway point of this split and they're, underwhelming still, or if they don't step up to the level and match everybody else and CLG stays top and they're beating, your TSMs, your Cloud9s, your Team Liquids with consistency, I think you've got to start making phone calls and have a plan in place to replace them for next split, because CLG deserves to have an elite tier North American team with all of their pedigree, all of their experience, all of their finances. They need to have a team that's going to Worlds, and they don't have that, and they should have that.
On the Xmithy topic, considering that among all the different positions, I would argue that the jungle or the jungler position has evolved much more than any other position in the past year or the past 2 years. Is Season 3 Xmithy's form good enough anymore?
If it's like anything, I think if you put in the work and you follow the changes and you've got a very good analytical type of brain, the meta will never leave you behind. And there are players like that who've they've been around change after change after change, and they remain consistent and they remain brilliant. Meteos, for example, is someone that springs to mind. He's always at the forefront of what's developing in the jungle, and you can't remember a season where you thought, yeah, Meteos was really bad this on this patch. He quickly gets to grips with it. Other players, I think, are still a little bit stuck in the past, and whether if Xmithy is one of those players and wasn't just somebody that was successful in a very perfect storm, the patch played to all of his strengths, his champion pool, etc., etc. He will be good. I stress, I do rate him as a player. I just think he was out of the game for so long at the highest level that I think there are definite question marks about him being able to propel CLG to where they need to be. Come the time Worlds come around, and I don't know how long he'll be in the team realistically. I think they'll be looking at other options, be they Korean or domestic. But anyway, Dallin, look, here's what I will say. As a CLG fan, I always got to take my hat off to you guys. I'm a Raiders fan in NFL, so I see a lot of simpatico with you guys. I've certainly suffered at the hands of the Oakland Raiders for some time. So best of luck for the split, and thanks a lot for calling in to get your thoughts, man.
Yeah, it was good to call in. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Do call in again sometime. You take care, brother.
For sure. Bye.
All right, peace. So there you go. There's Dallin, one of the brave few, a CLG fan. And you know what, Sam? I'll bring you in on this. I think he raises, a good point. It is they're such a strange team, such a strange organization that they almost have everything they need to succeed, and then they just seem to fail despite themselves. So what do you think?
Well, the only thing I can think is it has to be behind the scenes, right? Because even when they have a strong roster, they're still shit in the bed. So my guess, like, educated guess, is people's egos behind the scenes is what needs to be fixed. But the fact they've left Link on, who is the main person people talk about having the most issues in the team, I don't know, maybe they've sorted it out. Maybe Scar is tougher on them all. Maybe he just told Link, either fuck up or you're out. Maybe that was the wake up he needed.
Well, I mean, one of the things when Scarra went in that everyone was talking about is, is he going to give him? Is he going to give him a chance? Is he going to give him, yet another chance? And of course, Scarra came out and said, "Oh, we're having trials for jungle, and we're having trials for mid." And Link was obviously in both of those trials. I mean, they were even considering moving him to jungle to accommodate him. So there was no chance of him actually being dropped. If you say to somebody like, "Okay, well, we're having trials for your position," and they go, "Oh, well, that's a bit of a surprise. You thinking about replacing me?" Nah, don't worry about that. You can try out for this other position over here. It'll be like, you're always in the team. Don't worry about it. I mean, come on. Like, what the fuck? Like, this is a player that needs a fucking rocket up his ass. He doesn't need to be told that he's, got another safety net. Like, if we bring in a better mid laner, we'll just have you, dick around at jungle as well. So I think it's quite clear as well. I don't think Scarra has any influence over the playing staff in terms of who we have as a player and who we don't. I don't think Scarra's making those calls.
Well, so I'm trying to think who it would be, because Hotshot just seems like he's standing off it all. Like, he tried to at the start, he saw I went to shit, he's like, fuck it, just Kelby take it over. And then Kelby left to go to GGA. I don't know if he's still micromanaging the team, which was kind of the idea of
I strongly suspect that he is, based on what I've heard behind the scenes. But, look, I imagine a typical Hotshot day is he wakes up, he's pretty baked, he counts his money, and then it's like, what, is it the end of a split? I better make a statement about how I'm going to change things. And he types it up with his red eyes, and, he
just his knees.
I better get back to counting my money. I'm pretty sure that's kind of how a typical day, exists for him. But that isn't to say that he hasn't earned it. I mean, after all, he brought so much to the game. With his why new why, and of course his Nidalee becoming the terror of solo queue for fucking many years, which should have, he should have been put down for that, I think. Because if you ever played against the fucking Nidalee during the Hotshot era, just getting banged with fucking AP spears that do like 90% of your damage, it's like, fuck you, man. Like, he's to blame for that shit. But yeah, he's a proper dude. Anyway, I like him, is what I'm saying, secretly, even though it sounded like I don't. But I think he needs to pull his finger out and decide whether he wants to run the organization, or if he doesn't, he needs to bring in someone that's actually going to get fucking hands-on and firm with his players. Otherwise, they're always going to underachieve. You can't be half in, half out with management, man. You've got to fucking either handle your business or get someone to handle it for you. That's the only way that it works. Bunch of people messaging me as well. Breaking news while we're on the show. I thought everybody knew this. Yeah, basically, what's his name these days? Selfies
Corey.
Called Corey now, is he? Anyway, Corey, yeah, he is back to MYM. Which probably shocks a lot of people. I think if people knew the truth about that situation, Sam, I
was going to say, I'm shocked more. What the fuck? Well,
no, but here's the thing. I think if people knew the truth about the situation, like, for example, he wasn't going to be allowed to play for anyone else anyway.
Yeah. Well,
MYM had already said to Riot that he was, he's in breach of his contract. While he's under contract, we're not going to allow him to play for anybody else. And Riot were like, well, that's fair enough. So he didn't even have an option, really.
Get fucked.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I mean, he says he's happy to be back and he wanted to go back to the team.
Yeah.
But, he couldn't have played for anybody else. He did want to go out and play for Raw.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a bit of a clusterfuck. I mean, the idea as well about, Raw didn't work out. Like, all due respect to Raw, that roster, that was just, it was a fucking nightmare waiting to happen. So yeah, the Corey is going to be back to MYM. I'm sure he's going to be starting, but realistically, the organization handled that whole situation terribly, and I don't think the truth about how it all went down has been revealed yet. I think people will be very intrigued when it does come out, and maybe it's going to be me or another journalist that does the outing. I
And
know
then everyone will hate you for being a tabloid journalist telling people.
Well, yeah, exactly. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, what's going on? What's going on?" If only we had someone to tell us. And I'm like, "Hey, I know. Fuck you, you fucking snitch asshole, you tabloid hack, you fucking piece
You
of shit.
fucking scum.
I'm gonna cut your fucking face off and wear it as a condom, you fucking asshole." That's the kind of shit I have to put up with for doing my job. Anyway, I think what we'll do is we'll take a quick break with that lovely image in
Of your
in people.
face around the dick.
Yeah, around the bell end, and we'll come back with some more calls on trash talk. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. We're gonna get hydrated. I recommend you guys do the same because fluids are nice, and we'll see you in 5 minutes. Hello and welcome back to Trash Talk. Hope you enjoyed that break. I don't know what music Sam was playing at you while I was away.
Fuck all, because I'm an incompetent bastard.
Well, really?
No, I will. I have to, I need to fluid up as well. I need a break. I'm dying, fucking hanging on my ass.
You didn't play any music for anybody?
No. I had to entertain
Fuck no.
myself for 3 minutes.
Actually, though, do you know what? I'm kind of glad, because the worst part about doing these shows, well, one of the worst things, other than being harassed on a daily basis, when are you going to do the shows, is...
Song.
Yeah, exactly. What, can you give me the playlist? Like, dude, just please stop this. Like, it's music. Like, just find it.
I linked it like
ways.
4 times a stream, and then I just gave up. I was like, fuck it.
It sucks ass. But anyway, so I imagine we've got some more callers lined up, have we, Sam?
Next we have Jonathan, who is a regular, and he wants to talk about William Turton incident, as he's phrasing it, and how the state of journalism on League of Legends has changed and needs to be adjusted.
Interesting. I do like the fact that it's now called an incident. That's pretty...
Hello.
Hey, how you doing, Jonathan? Good to get you on the show again. The William Turton incident, which, it makes it sound probably way more important and way more fucking sinister than it was. But I do like it. I like that. Obviously, as a clickbait journalist extraordinaire, drama is my business. So
It's your bread and butter.
it is, man. It's what puts food on the table. And I obviously like food because I'm fat. So let's talk about the William Turton incident. What's your take on it, first of all?
So at first, I think it's pretty obvious that it was another situation where a journalist reported a leak of some kind. Then the org was, put out a comment or some sort of statement afterwards saying, "Oh, well, that's not the actual case. They're wrong. Don't worry about them," which has happened time and time again with yourself and many other journalists. But what was different this time was that Turton, instead of making maybe 1 or 2 Twitter comments about it and kind of just letting it die down, decided to almost ignite a Twitter mob and basically just throw a hissy fit on Twitter, to put it bluntly.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I can understand it to a certain extent, but it got to a point where he almost made himself look so bad that the LoL community was probably never gonna, work the circle jerk the other way, to put it bluntly, I guess.
Mm. I mean, look, as somebody that probably rarely handles myself particularly well in public, I can definitely sympathize. I mean, first off, I have to say, and this is, you may disagree with this, but I'm a big believer in that your work, your job shouldn't become some all-pervasive, kind of form of control that bleeds through into every aspect of your life. So, for example, my Twitter, I've got on there what everyone puts on there. Opinions are my own, but it doesn't actually seem to count for anything, because people will read my tweet, and if I say, hey, wouldn't it be cool if everyone killed themselves today? Then a fucking, someone will say, oh, Richard's mocking suicide, and it's affected my life, I'm going to complain. And it's like, well, yeah, but this is meant to be my own little domain where I get to say the things that I want to put out into the public domain, free from any sort of reprisals from work. Now, I'm a very libertarian kind of guy, and I think, I'm employed to do a very specific job. I believe I do it very well, and I believe my employers are satisfied with the results of that. I think if my employers actually started saying to me, and this doesn't just obviously apply to the Daily Dot, this is anybody, but I think if my employees started saying to me, yeah, you got to stop posting on Reddit and you got to stop tweeting that sort of stuff, I'd probably say, yeah, I'm not going to work for you anymore, because for me, it's a separate thing. And to expand it a little bit further, I don't really like those companies that, scan Facebook when you apply for a job. Oh, look, there's a photo of him drinking a pina colada, on holiday. Is he an alcoholic? Has he brought back any tropical diseases? We better not employ him. I think that's a gross invasion of privacy. You should judge me on
I can kind of get that. I can totally kind of get that to a certain extent. Like if you are an engineer and on your Twitter or Facebook or whatever, you say some things that people might not agree with. That's fine. But when you work in the public sphere, you have to, take a certain amount of care. And when you're in a position like William Turton is, where he's had maybe one or two run-ins with the community in the past, he kind of has to, tread a little more carefully than most. Unfairly, mind you, but that's just that's the scenario.
Yeah,
And I think that he,
I kind of agree. I understand that people, they want people that provide them with a service to almost fall in line with everything else that they've got this expectation, and it's disappointing when you don't fall in line with that expectation. But that doesn't alter the work, and ultimately, I think a lot of the time the expectations are really unrealistic. One of the things that I really hate, Jonathan, and this is my pet peeve. Are you? By the way, I will ask this, and I apologize if this is offensive. But are you American?
No, I'm Canadian.
Canadian. See, I had a fit. That's why I thought it might be offensive. I wasn't sure which one you were. But okay, so maybe you'll agree with this a little bit. But one of the things I really hate, not because I don't hate Americans. One of the things I hate about sort of American culture is the way that they're not just imperialistic when it comes to, hey, let's invade an oil-producing country and kill a load of brown people and pretend it's for freedom. They're not just imperialistic when it comes to that. They're imperialistic when it comes to language. And by this, I mean, we all know language is elastic, that it changes throughout, time periods. Words that we've still got from the 1400s in the English language don't necessarily have the same context or even the same meaning. But what Americans have done is they've come in for a bunch of words, they've changed the meaning, and then they've said, and now these words will never mean anything else. And this applies to certain words that are suddenly hate speech. Like there's a serious movement to try and get the word retard branded as hate speech. I don't understand that. I think retard. And I'll tell you why. Retard it had a very specific meaning, and that was that your intelligence was well below the average. It should be for someone of that particular
that used to be
age.
the way you would define someone with a mental condition, is you would say that they were retarded, which means slowed down, behind the curve.
But ultimately, that in itself was an appropriation. Yeah. So it was they took a word that meant you were not at the same mental level as everyone else in a particular age group should be. You were below average intelligence, and then it became some sort of blanket term, and eventually like for a medical term for people with mental health and issues. And I don't like that. I don't like retard being applied to people with mental health problems or learning difficulties. I think I do think that's disgusting. I like the word though. And I think it does apply back in its traditional meaning that if you are of a lesser intelligence for most people in your age group, you are a retard, and I want to have the right to call you a retard. So there's that, but it's not just about hate speech. This word, and this is where I'm going with this, professionalism. Professionalism. Americans have hijacked that word, professionalism, and they've took it to mean like. When I was growing up, and certainly, all the generations in my family before me, professionalism meant that you had a particular skill set to a requisite level to make a living from it. You were a professional. And then it kind of had a colloquial meaning to it, which was, oh, he'll look after you very well. He's a professional. Or, and then it kind of became, well, he won't give you any trouble. He's a model professional, meaning that he wouldn't necessarily act up or be an asshole or whatever. But now Americans seem to think that professionalism means you forfeit your right to an opinion about anything. You have to take abuse and bullshit with a shit-eating grin plastered to your face. Like, oh, hey, yeah, fucking abuse me some more. Why not come... so, for example, if you go into McDonald's and there's a guy behind there and you go, oh, mate, I'll get a cheeseburger, yeah? And you buy the cheeseburger and you unwrap the cheeseburger and in front of him you spit into the burger and then you take the burger and you smear it over the person's face. If he reacts and slaps your hand away, you'd go... my, how unprofessional of you. Right? Because he refused to take... It's some crazy American hang-up from the service industry about how the customer's always right.
and it's actually starting to get worse. I worked at Costco, which I think we can all, if we've had any experience with it, they'll basically suck your dick if you ask nicely enough. Like, you can go in there with something you bought 6 months ago, and they'll return it for you. They don't give a fuck. They'll do whatever it takes to get you, in and out.
Yeah.
While
yeah.
maintaining your membership and making you happy. It doesn't
Yeah.
fucking matter. And it got to a point where you almost have to just do things that are silly. Like, I had to walk a guy to the correct aisle and hand him a bag of chips because he couldn't find it on his first pass.
Yeah, and there's the thing. So in Britain, and it's changing because obviously we do everything that Americans do. We basically are little America. In it's horrible, but that's the reality. You know, we're not a very progressive or advanced culture, and politically we just kind of do everything you guys do, but to a or those guys do, I should say, to a lesser extent, and we do it about 5 years behind. So that's how we operate. but when it comes to things like the service industry, like let's say for example you work in a call center and someone calls you up and is just being a belligerent asshole, like, well, you've overcharged me by 10 pence and this is completely unacceptable and I am gonna fucking sue you all and I'm gonna sue you personally because I don't like your attitude. You can go, sorry sir, I'm terminating this call, and put the phone down. Boom. You just fuck off.
Nowadays there's actually a fucking guy who you redirect that caller to, and his job is escalations. You send him that caller, and he has to deal with the pissed off guy.
Yeah, and exactly. And if at any point you say to another human being, sorry, you're being an unreasonable prick, there's nothing in my job description that says I have to deal with your madness, your bullshit, your unreasonableness, and if you push back, you're unprofessional. That isn't what the word means. I don't know why Americans have made it mean that, because it's actually a disgraceful perversion of the word. And I hate it. It's a fucking massive pet hate of mine that, so it's okay for a random guy on Reddit to slander my name, to say that, I do X, Y, and Z, that, not only do I molest children, but, I film it and I do satanic worship and all of it. And I'm also going to be the next pope because those things would, of course, give me the requisite skills to be a good pope. And they put that up there on Reddit. And when I reply to it and go, you're a fucking asshole, I've never touched any kids. If I did, I certainly wouldn't film it, whatever, right? and they go, well, how unprofessional of you to reply to me. Lol, look at your shit life replying to random people on Reddit. Look at your shit life, motherfucker. You're accusing someone you don't even know of being a pedo, but I'm the guy with the problem. It's insane. It's fucking insane. Like, that's the insanity of the average person, and again, it all comes from this American perversion of the word professional. I get up, I do my fucking job, my employers fucking love it, right? They pay me to do it. I'm one of the best in my field, but I'm not going to take shit. I'm not. There's nothing in my job description that says I have to put up and suck the dick of every arsehole who tells me to kill myself on a daily basis. It's just not in my job description, and I'm never going to do it. And if that makes me unprofessional, then you don't understand what the word professional means to begin with. So to tie back to the William Turton incident, I think he's got every right to go on Twitter and call these fucking, borderline Neanderthal retards. I think he's got every right to do it. And if he has a hissy fit and people don't like it, well, get fucked. That's what I stand for. Just get fucked. That's it.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion. Obviously, we disagree slightly on that. But let's get back to the incident, because I feel like I've gone off on a tangent. We're doing satanic worship and paedophile popes and everything else. The show's going to get shut down on Twitch because it's just not about esports anymore. So let's just rewind a little bit. Let's just pull it back. So this William Turton incident, I still stand by what I did in going on Reddit and defending him. And I knew it would have the knock-on effect of making everyone hate me again, and people would be like, oh, what are we even shouting about? Oh yeah, we hate Richard Lewis. No one's even talking about William Turton anymore.
But for what it's worth, you going in and making one succinct post saying, this is the scenario, this is what happened, here's some proof, do with that what you will. That's an extremely good way to deal with it. Very little blowback other than the usual fuck Richard Lewis crap that always pops up when you post on Reddit. But I mean, honestly, that would have been the most optimal way to deal with it, as opposed to having kind of a disjointed conversation on all sorts of different social media while arguing with the mods in the mod mail, which I think we can all agree is something that's just completely fucking silly, and every single log of mod mail between journalists should just be public knowledge at this point. It's completely insane.
Mm. Yeah, it is. It is. It is insane. But I mean, for the most insane thing to me is that why would anybody? Right. So if a player releases a statement after a report, why the fuck would anyone believe? Why do we instantly believe the player? Like, I'm not saying we shouldn't necessarily believe the player, but why does a player trump a journalist? Again, you only have to look at who gains the most. Okay, a player who's contracted to an organization and can have his pay withheld if he does anything that violates that contract, comes out and says, no, everything's great in MYM, man. I don't know why anybody would think differently, because you're telling everyone on Skype, you fucker. That's why we think it, because there's no secrets in esports. If you've ever said anything to anyone on Skype, we know about it. Okay, we know about it because everyone sends the logs around going, "Ooh, look at Blizzard. Look how he's so unhappy. Look how he's laughing at Horo's English." And we get that and we fucking report it because it's like, well, okay. I mean, that particular story, I'll actually concede, wasn't of necessarily any big importance. It certainly wasn't a public interest story, in my opinion. That, you know, when it slid across my desk, I thought, I'm balls deep in match fixing. That's small potatoes. But William used his journalistic experience to judge that he felt it was a story worth reporting on, and he reported on things accurately, for my mind. Now, people were saying as well that we took a lot. You really generously interpreted that story based on the quotes that you had. Now, the quote that we had, in fact, fuck it, I'm going to bring it up. I think accuracy is important, despite people saying to the contrary. So let me just Blizzard.
A little side note for what it's worth, he did have a bit of a confusion with labeling the players because he was calling Blizer a starter when the only claim he had to being a starter was that he happened to be the one playing. He was still a sub, wasn't really fully contracted in that sense, and was, contracted only as a substitute player.
And I agree that maybe based on the information, some components of the story weren't entirely accurate. So, for example, we'll never know about the subbing issue. Because certainly Blizzard was going around and saying to everybody, quote, I am out of MYM. No more MYM. I'm going home tomorrow. It was a great experience. That would lead me to believe, if I saw that conversation and the numerous others like it, coupled with all the other people saying he had left the organization, and also the MYM CEO, Khaled Naeem, saying, I see that Blizzard missed nearly every skill shot and doing all he can to bring Corey back into the fold, that would lead me to believe that Blizzard has no future whatsoever at MYM. Okay? Now, I think, obviously, they had him contracted, and basically what they've said is, you're still under contract. He's not a substitute. He'll never play for MYM again, but I guess that's how you label it. And if we want to play semantics, probably the report was wrong in that regard. But the key thing for me was that Blizzard came out and said the thing about Horo is a lie. And the thing that we'd reported, again, to quote, let me just get this up. The exact quote was, was it Hasumgard has apparently become frustrated by what's described as internal communication and team play problems. Okay, so that sentence seems fine to me because, in his own words, Blizzard 300 said the main problem on MYM is communication and team play. Right? So that's accurate. That's not a problem. Why are people arguing about that? In addition, but this is back to the Daily Dot, in addition to team-wide problems, Horo, a former Korean pro, in particular, has had trouble getting his English to a level where he can communicate with the team effectively. Again, we go back to the quote from Blizzard. Blizzard 300 said, Horo's English is not so good, though. And that immediately followed on from him talking about MYM having communication and team play problems. I do not see that paragraph in any way being problematic. Yet there were so many fucking Pulitzer-winning journalists on Reddit, all of them still in diapers by the fucking, content that they were spewing out with their pudgy little fingers, that, apparently that is a problematic statement to make based on that evidence. I don't think it is. But regardless, Blizzard said it was a lie. he said it was a lie, that he'd never said it. And there it was in black and white that he said it. He's still not apologized. And in actual fact, Reddit are apologizing for him and saying, well, he doesn't need to apologize, man. I mean, you've just completely run wild there. Your imagination is just, it's completely out of control. It's like, no, he said it. End of fucking discussion.
And what doesn't help the scenario is that Yamato Ken, I think he's the coach / manager or some weird combo that teams are having nowadays. He went on social media and said, oh, well, Horo's English is fine. And then linked Blizer's Facebook response being like, oh, you can get the rest of the info here. Which is further doing the whole, oh, why should we believe the journalist when, the org is saying this? Well, what possible conflict of interest could they have?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I mean. It blows my fucking mind that the idea, people even said this, by the way, people even said this. They said, well, Blizzard's just a substitute now, man. So why wouldn't he tell the truth? Like I say,
he wants to get another job, maybe.
Right. Small matter of the contract, number one. Second, this Corey return could fucking implode at any moment, and he could get another shot. So, you suck a chain of dick to make that happen. Third of all, MYM, they're not exactly... I mean, these motherfuckers play hardball with their players and shit. They really do. I could tell you some stories. I can't at the moment, but I certainly will. And you won't believe it. And then there's the other point of, if you look like some crazy temperamental snitchy, oh, he's a snitch, he doesn't keep secrets, like why should anyone tell the truth in esports? If he looks like one of those guys, he'll never get picked up by another organization. He'll always be the guy, oh yeah, he was in MYM for 2 weeks and then he ratted out what a shit team they are and said fucking Horo can't even speak English. And then he did some fucking, racist Korean impression and told a few jokes about fucking their diet that was particularly offensive. So, well, we better not pick him up. So that's why. There's 4 fucking reasons why. Again, find me one reason why William would have just made that up. Specifically, why would you make that up? It makes no sense. You only have to look at it logically to realize that the player is the person who's obviously got something to gain from lying. The journalist, a lot less so. If a journalist ever gets caught in a lie, like comprehensively proven to have lied, you're pretty much done. That's it. I mean, he accidentally used a quote without permission from a source, and it still haunts him to this fucking day. People bring it up. Oh, well, you used a quote from Broken Shard without acquiring permission. You have forfeited all right to ever be a journalist ever again. And I know because my dad read a book once, and serious. This is the fucking level of fucking discourse we're dealing with here from this fucking retarded community that will not just let fucking journalists do their fucking job. It's disgusting. If they think the players and the organizations and the league and Riot, if they think these people genuinely care about them and aren't just using them to fucking monetize their esports dreams and livelihood, they're out of their fucking minds. Some of us actually do genuinely give a fuck about making esports a better place. Not every story, not every report I'm going to file is going to achieve that goal. Some of it will be not clickbait, but some of it will be, like a bit of fun or, ooh, look at the internal problems in EG. It's a little bit like lifting the veil or whatever. It's not necessarily going to make esports a better place, but the bulk of what I report, the things that I really care about are improving esports, exposing liars and thieves, and making the industry better to work in for players and for fans generally. So I've got no idea why these people attack somebody with that goal, that desire, and William's exactly the same. He's the only other dirt digger that I know of in esports. Now that Slasher is effectively retired, although he's coming back with another publication, which should have been announced yesterday, I think, but will be announced tomorrow. There aren't any dirt diggers anymore. And I'm even thinking at this stage, fuck League of Legends, man. I don't want to write for that audience anymore. Seriously, it's tedious going through the same shit. Having guys like fucking Liquid come out and go, oh, this Richard Lewis just makes it up as he goes along. And then 3 days later, exactly what I said was going to happen happens. And he goes, but it wasn't gonna. So in that case, you owe me a fucking drink because I put the idea in your head, obviously, because you followed it to the fucking letter. I gave you the plan. I deserve a cut of the profits then. Because clearly you weren't going to do it, and now I've given you the idea to pick up those players. Just lying assholes, and then they go out and they fucking smear you. And then when you go, yeah, I really think you should apologize for that. Don't think so, man. Look at me, I got an agency, a ding dang do. I'm making loads of money. Like fuck. Seriously, is this fucking real? Is this real? Is this the industry I fucking work in, where some overprivileged, over fucking paid, fucking prick can lie about me, smear me in public for doing my job, and the community they just open up my shit into my mouth more, please, and they just fucking love it. And I'm stood there going, holy fucking shit, like what have I got to do? Is that my life? Is that what I have to do? Is that it? Was that what it takes?
Welcome to eSports, shit in my mouth.
Yeah, it's just it blows my fucking mind. Like, do people honestly not know where we would be without fucking journalists in this industry? Do you know how many times players have been ripped off and not fucking paid, or leagues have just fucking lied and bullshitted the way to things and got people to sign up for prizes that never materialize? Or how many times do you think Riot are gonna let their shoddy security get fucking hacked with your data and your transactions and your credit card details all getting ripped off, and they just pretend it doesn't happen until a journalist forces them into admitting it? How many, if you take journalists out of the equation, I hate to sound like some fucking over dramatic guy, but since I've just been ranting and raving for 20 minutes, why the fuck not? We're almost like the Watchmen of this particular industry. And anyone who actually does any watching just gets attacked and driven out and fucked with. I had it for 5 months with the match fixing thing. And I'll tell you this, if Valve hadn't have banned those North American players, I'd be getting fucked now. And it's bad enough that for exposing a match fixing ring, I've got people fucking messaging me and telling me, don't ever come to an American event or I'll shoot you. That's my life. For what? So imagine you're 17 and not a very devilishly handsome man in his early 30s, and you're a 17-year-old kid, and you're having to put up with that level of hate, that level of abuse, that level of fucking ridiculous discrepancy between trying to serve a community and the community giving back and saying thanks. You would go fucking nuts, and that's why you quit. So I mean, again, fucking round of applause to all those assholes. Well done, mate. You're one real journalist down, and guess what? No one's going to replace him because they've watched how you treat them. So here's what's going to happen: the next breed of journalists, are they going to be interested in digging up dirt and finding out facts and exposing all of the lies and the bullshit that go on, where you get conned, you get duped, you get ripped off? No, they're not. Do you know what they're going to do? They're going to say, oh, hey, Riot, how can I work for NALOL eSports? Well, you got to write an article about how Jarvan is super strong because we can't say any heroes are bad, but... And you just write this puff piece and you get paid $200 to do it. And apparently that's real journalism to these fucking idiots.
Well, if you want to talk puff pieces, our good friends over at Dignitas are really good at pumping that stuff out. And they've been in the news again recently. And I've seen Odee in the chat, so this is going to be great.
Well, right, okay. So can I just get, before you basically make Odee hate me, because I'm going to allow you the freedom to say something about Dignitas, which doesn't sound like it's going to be too good. Can you just give me some final thoughts on the William Turton thing? Because I think I kind of maybe took over the call a little bit there.
Sure.
So, go on. What are your final thoughts on it?
Okay. So, final thoughts about William Turton. I say that it's probably one of the many, and not the last of the many overblown things that are going to happen when a journalist breaks a story. Obviously, some inconsistencies with the story were kind of, especially for the people who knew what was going on, there was a little bit of inconsistency in terms of the wording, but for the most part, it was pretty much all spot on. And then, league community gets it. Org puts out a thing later saying, oh, well, that guy's wrong, and everything just goes to shit. And I think it's pretty ridiculous that it's allowed to happen, to be frank.
Yep, I'm with you. I'm with you. So, come on then, get me in trouble with one of my oldest colleagues in esports. What are you going to say about Dignitas?
So, a couple things. To start with, their League of Legends team is clearly falling apart right now. They've lost their jungler. They lost their AD carry before the season started. They lost their top laner to a poaching incident. And to replace them, we don't know who's coming in for jungle, but to replace them, they got 2 Koreans and basically refused to get a coach and made a workaround with Riot where they took their acting regional manager to use as a coach, who may or may not have had any particularly great knowledge about the game, and have today put up a little post saying that they're after 2 weeks of LCS and failing, they've decided to look for a head coach for their team finally, and their requirements are you have to speak English and Korean fluently and be an analyst at the same time, which is frankly ridiculous, and I would be honestly surprised if they found someone who fit that criteria while also agreeing with Odee's, personal way of dealing with things.
Well, okay. So, I mean, first off, though, I'll play devil's advocate. Is it not a good thing that they're setting a very high bar for the candidate?
I mean, you can say that you're setting a high bar, but I remember talking with Odee briefly before. It was Twitch chat, so take it all with a grain of salt. That
Absolutely.
he said that he's never had anyone who was a qualified coach come up to him, and whenever you would drop the names of already qualified free agent coaches, he would say, who the fuck is that? His standard Odee response, and he would basically go on and on, not acknowledging any potential candidate. And now he wants basically the super head coach that may or may not exist. Like, this person with all these criteria may or may not exist. And he wants to hire them 2 weeks into a split where most of the analysts and coaches and potential people who would want to get this position have already gone to other teams. And I think it's just frankly silly.
Okay, so yeah, right. Here's what I will say. I don't know why they didn't have that coaching infrastructure in place going into this season. I don't know if they wanted to get the team sorted out and have the players recruited first before they did it. But I do think it's interesting that they're looking to get a candidate in who does, that's like I say, that is a very strict criteria. I much prefer that, actually. I think it legitimizes coaching a lot more than, hey, do you remember that player who we used to play with like 2 years ago who's shit now? He was
for
cool,
sure.
Yeah. Can we bring him in? That shit player? Yeah, let's get him. And they have a jolly up for a while. And it's like, hey, it's just like old times. And, I hate the way that we recycle has-beens, like, through role to role. Like, sometimes it's great because it works. Sometimes a player will transition into being a great coach or a great commentator or a great journalist or a great analyst or whatever, or a great manager. That will happen in some cases. For the most part, though, what people need to remember is, very much like real sports, the players themselves spend so long and so much focus on being adept at the game that they don't develop a lot of life skills in other areas. And so when they try and move into other areas, it ends badly. This is why so many NFL and NBA players go bankrupt inside of 5 years of retirement. This is why, so many people in soccer over here have drink problems, depression problems when they retire from the game. There's literally nothing for them to do. They try and get their coaching badges. They can't get jobs. It's a problem in real sports. So obviously it's a problem in league. It sounds like at least what Dignitas is trying to do is they are trying to bring in a professional candidate, because if you were bilingual, to that degree, you're certainly not some fucking, washed up North American player looking for a free ride.
Right, just to interrupt
that's
for
perfectly
a second.
fair.
Sorry.
Go
Odee would
ahead.
actually like to come in the call and explain himself. Now,
Okay.
before I bring him in, let me just say in Twitch chat, how many coaches, or owners rather, would you know that would come on a shitty call-in and explain to a bunch of plebs why he's doing what he's doing for his business? So give him a bit of respect, let him say what he needs to say, and then we'll...
All right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, cool. I don't think that was aimed at you. I think he was aimed at the Twitch chat. We don't think you're a pleb, Jonathan, not by any means. But this is what happens. You see, Odee's like Candyman. You say his name 3 times, and he appears.
He'll appear.
Yeah, and here he is. So can you hear me, Odee?
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm good. Jonathan Odee, Jonathan. Apparently, you've already met each other in Twitch chat, but I imagine.
Yeah, in the good old Twitch
Yeah,
chat.
Twitch chat. Yeah, I've known the guy for years.
Well, I can't wait for you guys to reacquaint yourselves. So, but basically, I'm sure you heard the call so far, Odee, and the points that Jonathan was making about the coaching infrastructure and that kind of thing. So, I'm sure you have a rebuttal.
Yeah, I was listening to the first bit, which was kind of interesting about the journalism stuff, and that's something that I'm a really big advocate of, and that's what Richard knows me for that, because we need more journalists that do this stuff. There are not enough, and they get crucified for pointing out shit that happens. And it's like what's happened to us today. Like you can't win. Like if as soon as you do something, you get slated on Reddit, and like I've had it all day today where I'm getting picked apart. My staff are getting stuff thrown at them from Reddit. It's ridiculous. It's like you just can't win, so we just get on with it. So you want to ask me? I'm here. Like you want to ask me about the Jonathan McDaniel? If you want to ask me about how I'm running my team, go for it, and I'll tell you what we've been doing.
Okay, so first, I think the first most obvious question that most people would want is why wait till now to get a coach instead of getting a coach as the team kind of coming together in the house and kind of preemptively work out any kinks that may happen in the personal lives of the players.
Okay, so we just lost Crumbs. That's a major part of our setup gone. So Crumbs was the team leader. That doesn't mean he sits there and he calls in game. He does all the stuff out of game, which Crumbs said yesterday. And the team decides how they play. And the way that we set up this year, obviously it was thrown on us that we lost our coach right last minute, so we didn't have time to recover properly. But like Richard says, I'm not going to go out and get some random guy that like used to play the game and might be able to coach. I need to know that these guys can coach. I want the best coach. I don't want a random coach. I want somebody that can come in and tell my guys how to play. If that's what they want to do.
That's entirely fair to want someone who isn't just, an ex-player, because honestly, that's what League of Legends was for a while. It was, who's a name that existed that we can recycle to our team. And I'm glad that that's kind of not happening as much as it used to. But I still think there is a little bit of oversight that needed to be taken into account before going into the split in terms of getting a full support staff like an analyst and a coach.
But this is the thing, like I keep seeing this, like you don't have a full support staff, or Odee, you're not managing your team. Do people think that we sit here doing nothing all day? Like,
of course not.
Do you have any clue about the structure around our team?
I mean, I can only know what a person like me could know, right? I only know that currently Malixia is your...
Yeah, Malixia is our NA regional manager. So Riot this year brought in that coaches have to be at the studio for pick bands. I get why they're doing it. For us, it's literally a case of some guy standing there with a notepad with the picks that we'd already decided what we're going to do on the pad, reminding the players what to pick.
Yeah.
You've got some coaches that are able to, on the fly, like Loco Doco. He's a coach. Like I got no doubt about that one. He is a coach. So he can actually, on the fly, decide to change stuff. But most teams, if you change stuff at that last minute, on stage in LCS, you're going to lose. So that's one matter. In the background,
to a certain extent, I can get that.
Yeah, but in the background, we have a series of analysts. We have guys in Korea that we talk to, and the guys bring us the tactics. We have a network of looking at what other regions are doing. I want to bring in a coach right now, but there just isn't a coach that's going to tell my team what they need to be doing. The fact that we've asked for the person that may not exist on the application, I want to find that guy. He might be there. We just don't know. So I don't see a problem with that either. It's very hard to do this. But when you lose a team, when you lose a team leader, this is not just like somebody that was top lane and he's gone and we changed the top lane. You lose the caller, you lose a hell of a lot. So in the last few days, we're doing a shit ton of stuff to replace our jungler for this weekend. Because right now, I don't even know who it's going to be. And we got like less than 24 hours to decide. So
and I can understand that to a certain extent, but the point that I kind of want to make is that when you don't have that person who is in on the strategy and is able to contribute his own strategy to the team, you kind of have the players making all the choices, and that's in the past has led to a lot of problems where you see teams who go in with a certain plan in mind, and I think Dignitas has had this issue come up before with all the strat leaks way back when, where they would go in.
I'm sorry to interrupt though, but you didn't listen to what I said. We have.
Oh, I listened. I understand it. I understand that you guys have analysts, but those people aren't there on the day.
I don't think they really need to be there on the day.
But that's the thing. They do. You need to have a person who understands the strategy and is able to make some form of adaptation on the fly. Because if you go into game and you've practiced, let's say you've practiced an anti-Sivir comp, and the day before Riot said, "Oh well, Sivir's banned for today." Gladly that didn't go through. But if that had been the case, now your comp, the thing that your comp hinges on, is now banned. You have to take a fallback strategy. And on top of that, you don't know whether you're going to be able to pull it off. And for all you know, you could go into game. Your coach isn't exactly able to say, oh, well, pick this, because he may not know. He's not that network of analysts that you say you have. So you could have your team just all fall back on comfort picks and make a composition that'll never really happen.
Yeah, but again, you don't go into an LCS game with one plan. You go with a backup.
Obviously not.
So, like, I know what you're saying. Like, I've coached many teams in esports. I can't coach League of Legends. I'm shit at the game. I don't even understand how to play it. I'm bronze 4. But Counter-Strike, Battlefield, anything FPS, I've coached for the last 10 years. I know exactly what a coach needs to do. So the fact that people don't get that, or even see that we know what we need to get and we know what we want. The problem is the team and the setup that we had. At the end of last year, we decided we're good as we are. Like, the network's good, in-game should be good, let's go. It just didn't kind of work. It just didn't work out. Mm-hmm. And we got to change, and we're changing it.
I mean, so I'll just jump in for a moment. Okay, so there's a couple of questions. I think one of them would be, one of the criticisms that some people have been saying, and you're right. I know you've had to deal with quite a bit today. So I appreciate you coming on. Was that why didn't you have the foresight about the coaching? That there was guys like Last Shadow, for example, who actually fit the bill that you're looking for, who've been a free agent, for a while and have been looking for a team to attach themselves to. For example, he speaks English and Korean. He's thought of very highly. The Koreans rate him. The West teams rate him as well. Why is it that this situation has kind of arisen where you're looking for it now while the season started, rather than having it in place for when the season had begun?
Well, I wasn't expecting Crumbs to step down, and that kind of that's basically it. Like, we just wasn't expecting that.
So is that saying that Crumbs would effectively take on that almost like player coach mantle then?
No, just lead. Like, the team would decide with the analysts like what we're going to play this week, and then when we get to LCS, we know what to do. Crumbs is the in-game leader, and he knows the plan. He calls, Alan calls, and we get on with it. But now we've lost Crumbs, we have to change, and now I can change. Moving into LCS this season, we put everything in place to get this team where it needs to be. It's like we went to Korea for 3 weeks. No one knew we went. We just went. And we didn't just go like, let's go to Korea and like we'll learn how to do things. They had a 14-hour-a-day schedule where we were practicing with Korean and Chinese teams, working with Zenix Storm, working with the analysts and coaches. And to be perfectly honest, I think maybe seeing that stuff firsthand for the North American players probably made them realize that, shit, we actually need a coach. But I can only go on what my team are telling me. And if my team are telling me, Odee, we're good as we are, I got to trust my team.
Yeah, and I can understand wanting to trust your team to a certain extent, like I said before. But what I think is the real problem on the surface, at least, like, obviously I can't attest to know the inner workings of your organization. Like, for example, the analyst network sounds like a really good setup. Like, that's genuinely good, and I wish more people knew and wish you guys were more public about that. But the one issue I do see is that when you made that decision to recruit the 2 Korean players without having a head coach previously lined up, you really backed yourselves into a corner, because now you either need to get a coach and a translator who both live in the house, which would obviously be an awkward situation, or you have to get a full-on head coach with all these criteria that you've listed, which is likely not a very easy fit to find. And it's kind of a little, not necessarily a lack of foresight, but kind of repercussions of the situation you put yourselves in, I should say.
No, I don't think so. It's like there's no precedence for any of this. Like, it's like what professional sport has their coach living in a house with them? Like, seriously,
that depends your definition, but yeah.
Well, any sport, any professional sport, the coach doesn't live with the team.
That's because in every single sport, the rosters are too big for that to even be an idea in someone's head, right?
It's because we're still in the infancy of what we're doing. Like, I'd love to have a coach that could. I'd love to have like a training center in Los Angeles where the guys turn up at 9 a.m. and then they go straight through like all the gym and shit like that. Get to 11, you do like tactics and the analyst stuff.
And then you do your scrim blocks.
In the afternoon, you practice. I'd love to do that. One day that will happen. That's my dream. But right now, it's tough to like think of stuff like that. And it's when we got the Koreans, we didn't just think, right, lads, let's get Koreans. We're gonna win, yay! Like, I seriously, like some people on Reddit, like they actually believe that's how you run a team. Like, I was probably the biggest advocate of I want to wait, but the team decided these two are available. They want to get these guys. And again, I trust my teams. That's how I manage. So your opening remarks were Odie's personal way of dealing with things. Not many people know how I do stuff. Not many people.
Well, obviously not. I'm just saying that you're generally a little rough around the edges compared to most of the people in the scene.
Exactly. But not many people know me. You don't know me.
Of course not.
Like, I'm probably the nicest guy in the world if you knew me, but Reddit and a lot of the scene just see Twitch chat, and they'll see me call someone a name in Twitch chat, which I apologize for. I shouldn't have done that. But people don't know me. And all I care about is esports. I care about my players and my staff. I care about protecting them. So you can throw as much mud as you want at me. But when people start having to go at my staff and my players, that it crosses the line to a certain extent.
So with that in mind, Odee, obviously it was a particularly bad day, and I know this didn't bother you quite so much, but I think it contributed towards some of the criticism and flack you were receiving. The Skara situation, where obviously on stream he presented a version of what happened in regards to the poaching incident, where he kind of made it sound that you took a conversation that they'd had, that he'd come to you kind of in confidence and was looking for advice and guidance, and you again, his version, I don't know if it differs from what happened, was that you then took that and got him in trouble about it.
Well, it's not the full story. It's just a snippet of it. It's like I'm talking to Scar right now, so it's not like that we like Scar is a friend. He'll always be a friend. Like he was working with me for 3 years, and the conversation that started with him 20 minutes ago, hi. And he said, "Hi, Odee. Sorry about the stuff yesterday. I didn't mean for it to blow up like that." And I was like, "No worries. Like I agree to an extent, but I'm not worried about it." So whatever happened in that incident, and I'm not going to go into specifics, it wasn't just like Skara mentioned it to me. Like it would have come out anyway because they did it like 2.5 months before they were allowed to, which kind of put us in the shit. And CLG got punished. I feel sorry for George. I still consider him a friend. I don't know if he's wherever, it doesn't matter. But they got fined a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
But it cost me 50,000 to replace the damage.
Yeah.
And I'm the one that's the bad guy. But like Richard said earlier, I'm a stickler for stuff like this. If things like this are not adhered to, when there's a specific rule in LCS that you cannot poach players or you cannot speak to players, I want people to stick to it. Otherwise, it's never going to stop. And if there's no punishment for stuff like that, people with money are going to poach players all day, and the smaller teams are going to get pissed on, and it's not fair.
Yeah, and the interesting part about that is the only reason you were in a position where you could have the proof that CLG wasn't exactly adhering to the rules was because you had such a good relationship with Skara. And that's one of the more subtle ways you can see that, you really do care about your team.
Yeah, of course I care about my team. Like I went to bed at 5, I was up at 9, and it's midnight now. Like I don't know what time it is today. I don't know what happened today, but today went quite quick. And most of it is to make sure that the LCS team for the weekend is good to go. We got a tough weekend. We got a tough season, but that's esports. That I love it.
So, no, sorry to interrupt. I just have one more question. I have one more question, and look, I know this is another tough one, but I know when you come on these things, it's always because you want to address something. So the way I look at it is by asking a difficult question. Obviously, I'm presenting you with the opportunity to address it, and everyone's been saying it. Now, the Dignitas team is kind of systematically, it's radically altered. You've lost Cutie Pie. Scar has gone. We've had to bring in players. Now Crumbs has stepped down. Some people are theorizing that, all is not well internally because of these, high profile changes, that there's like a rot at the heart of the team. And this is why the personnel's turning over, at a more rapid rate than it ever has before. And, I don't know if some people are, no doubt some people are blaming you for that. But can you explain why that seems to be the case all of a sudden. Why so many people who were synonymous with the success for Team Dignitas are now stepping down and moving away from Team Dignitas.
If I had the answer to that, we wouldn't be changing anybody. It's like with Skara. Skara literally wanted to try something new, and I respect that. And like I said, like Skara's a friend. Like we're not going to go out and like have McDonald's every Friday night, but he's still a friend. Cutie Pie was earning too much money streaming. Like that's a simple one. Like he just wanted to go and earn more money streaming. You can't blame him for that. Crumbs, surprising that he stepped down, I must admit, but
Yeah.
I think anybody can see like the level of play this to start with. Like he knew like he wasn't performing. Like, he didn't step down because there was like we said, right, do this or else. Like he actually surprised me that he stepped down. The 4 players we've got in the house, they're practicing right now. They're since yesterday we've been trialing junglers. They want to win. And most of the teams that I have want to win, and that's why we support them. The fact that you change players, to me, it's normal because I manage so many players and so many teams. There's not a problem. We're doing pretty well as a company at the moment. So the infrastructure that we have and the management that we have, that even goes to our editorial staff, and that's another thing I get so much shit on. Like this is something I want to say while I'm on here.
Do it.
Yeah, this Theon on Fire guy, I still don't know who he is. Like when he tweeted me, I wasn't even angry when I replied to that kid. So he tweeted at me, "Nice doing business with you, Odee," and I replied, "Sorry, but who are you?" I wasn't even in a mood. And then the next day, I actually got an email from Riot saying we've suspended this guy. And I'm like, I actually replied to the email and saying, don't worry about it. I didn't really care. Like, just, you don't need to do that. It's a bit harsh. And still, I get all the shit for it. Like, that was nothing to do with me, that guy.
But the thing that seems to have stuck, of course, and it's rapidly becoming a meme, obviously, is Dignitas pay their staff in mouse mats.
Yeah, and that's caused me even more shit. That I'm actually more annoyed about because we haven't done that for several years. Now all the editorial staff that we have now want fucking mouse pads, and I haven't got any. So thanks.
Well, I mean, for what it is worth, you guys kind of pay at least the editorial staff that are kind of doing it on the side of a real job. You kind of give them credits towards your store and say, "Oh, you want a T-shirt? Yeah, you can earn a T-shirt." As opposed to giving any kind of CPM.
Stuff. Again, it's speculation that people on Reddit just think that we pay mouse pads. One guy says it and everybody believes it. We have a whole system. We have people that we pay. Some people we pay a lot of money. Some people we pay a small amount of money. Some people volunteer. Last year, I paid out £50,000 in money to editorial people. 50 grand. And I didn't give anybody any mouse pads that I can remember. And now I have to give 30 odd people fucking mouse pads. Thanks. So
fuck off, Sam. Get back to your cave.
Yeah. So all the shit that we get for that, like, we don't need to do the editorial stuff on our page. It's just something we choose to do. Well, I wouldn't say many, but several people that have come through Dignitas and have volunteered, wrote some articles, now have full-time jobs in journalism because of us. And that's what I'm proud about. So if you want a mouse pad, don't ask me because I haven't got any.
Well, look, I think that's... Jonathan, did you have any more questions just before I wrap up the call? Or are you suitably satisfied with what you've heard from the man himself?
Yeah, I think it's... I mean, it's gone to the point where Odee got on the call, so I think it's more than enough.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, but like from our point of view, we're not sitting here letting our team fester. That's just
obviously
stupid.
not.
To ever hear that is just stupid. We care about our team.
Sorry, go on. No.
I was going to say, sometimes shit happens, and we just got to deal with it.
The last question, Odee. I know this is again perhaps not a question you want to even entertain at this stage of the season, but if the worst was to happen and you guys were staring, at relegation, how cataclysmic would that be? I mean, I know Team Dignitas, it's one of the jewels in its crown is, of course, the fact that it's an established LCS team.
Well, we're going to make sure we put everything in place to make that not happen. If it happens, I'll deal with it when we get to it. It's like when we went through relegation. God, was it last year, spring split, or the year before? Yeah, that was a pretty bad time. We'll just deal with it. I don't even. All I'm thinking about now is getting the new jungler in, getting the new coach person in as quickly as we can, and let's see where we go from there.
And are you aware of Last Shadow? Because one of the things Jonathan said was that you didn't pay particular mind to a lot of the coaching talent that was available to you. Are you aware of Last Shadow and what he does?
I'm aware of him, but we've not gone out and asked for a coach like that. Like, we've done the post now. If he wants to apply, check the post on our page. At the end of the day, that's up for my guys to tell me if they want a particular person to coach them. When I get involved in a game that I don't fully understand myself and tell them this is the guy that's going to coach you, that's a bad thing. I can do it in FPS games, but not in League of Legends. I need advice from my team.
Yeah. Okay.
And not just the players, like the management team we have around it.
Yeah. Well, look, Jonathan, I'll thank you for your call, and you allowed me to rant, and you made Odee appear, which, so as calls go, it was pretty good. It definitely ticked all the boxes. Odee, before we sort of wrap up the show, any final words? Like I say, I know it's been a rough day for you. Anything else you would like to add?
I just like a plea to the arseholes on Reddit. There was one particular guy on Reddit that made up that he's part of our staff, and he did a whole list of like he's an insider and this is what they do at Dignitas. And I couldn't stop laughing at this particular one because it was just hilarious.
And anything that you remember that was particularly funny?
I'm just looking at it now. It's like, so the reasons that terrible stuff going on inside Dignitas, we disbanded the World of Warcraft 3 versus 3 team when WoW was at its peak popularity. That's why. Just stuff that's completely made up. It's like, why do people do this? Like, do something else.
I don't know, mate. I wish I could answer that question. I think if I could answer that, I'd write an award-winning book, How to Stop Twats Being Twats by Dr. Richard Lewis, and I think it would be a huge success. I'm
just glad I'm shadow banned on Reddit and I don't look at it much, so that's probably a good thing for me.
Yeah, keep that blood pressure down. Well, look, anyway, Jonathan, thanks for your call. Obviously, Odee, always a pleasure to hear from you, and I know you tune in religiously, so thanks a lot for that, and I'm sure you'll have a much better day tomorrow once all of this eSports drama has died down, and of course, best of luck for the rest of the season.
Well, tomorrow we announce the new jungler, and then we get a whole load of shit thrown on us again, because we can't win. It's gonna be the next shit will be, oh my god, you got him, blah blah blah, rather than good luck. Like, let's hope he does well. So.
Well, yeah, we'll look forward to that. I'll try and mitigate some of the damage. Although I'll probably chime in and stick a knife in as well. Why not? Like, it'll be. Yeah, I heard me and Thorin will be there. Yeah, I heard he's shit. So, but anyway, you look after yourself, Odee, of course, and Jonathan, thanks a lot for your call. We'll wrap it up there, I think. Take care, guys.
Yeah.
Yep. So there we are. Well, what a crazy second half to the show, Sam.
Yeah, very energetic as I'm dying in my fucking hole.
Yeah, I know. I feel that. Did we just do one call?
Yeah, for the second half, I think.
Yeah, fuck me. That was a roller coaster of emotions. We're all over the place. But yeah, I think Jonathan, I get why fans probably do feel a little bit frustrated, but it's like everything, you never really know what's going on behind the scenes. Odee's a bit more transparent than the average team owner, and he doesn't mind kind of sticking his neck out and addressing some of the problems. Has been a particularly tough day for Dignitas today, and like he says, they've got to replace Crumbs, and I'm sure when that's announced, people will no doubt be skeptical about whoever is coming in.
Yeah.
Did see Broken Shard in the chat. Maybe they're going to...
That's one way to guarantee relegation.
I was going to say, yeah, they're going to hit rock bottom. I'm kidding. We love you, Ram. But yeah, so, I think it's been a good show tonight. So obviously I want to thank all the people for jumping on the stream and watching it, and thanks to all the people who called in, and of course all the people who queued up calls and didn't get a chance to call in. Sorry if you were one of those people. We will try and get you next time. But just before we do go, I want to bring your attention to something which I think is hugely important. It would be hilarious if it wasn't real, and that is Garena eSports have been updating their rules in their Iron Solari League, which is the all-female, or as they call it, all-feminine tournament. And they've introduced a rule which addresses, lesbian, gay, and transgendered women. And they've actually brought this rule. This is serious. This is legitimately what they've wrote, which is each team. I can't even believe this. Honestly,
I thought it was satire when I read it. I was expecting them
seriously.
all to just be like, well, JK.
Each team will be allowed to have a maximum of one, and then bracket, one gay or transgendered woman for the entirety of the tournament day. Therefore, teams cannot do the following. Team A's first game will be 4 female members and 1 gay.
It's so ridiculous. I can't even not laugh.
I don't know. Not one. It's ridiculous in and of itself, but I like the way they don't say like gay person. It's gay. Just one gay. Like there are subspecies. Like it's unfucking believable. Then on Team A's second game, they will have 4 female members and replace with another gay or transgender. Then it says the second ruling: any team who has violated the above provision, regardless if intentional or otherwise, like it's a mistake. Like oh my god, whether discovered during the day of the event or sometime after, will have all their team members, the female members as well as the gay, sanctioned with a 1-year ban on all Garena organised event, including subsequent Iron.
How do they do the tests for that? How do you prove if someone's gay or transgender? Is there a genitals check before you enter the? What if you're post-op? Does you count?
Dude, I think you need to know they're pretty advanced. They've actually got this test.
Gay chamber. Walk into a gay chamber. Test if gay.
Yeah. What they do is they plant attractive women around the venue, and they come on to the players. And anyone who like reciprocates, they know then, and they go, ha ha! I work for Garena. I'm not really gay, but
it was all a ruse.
You are gay, and you're banned, and your team's banned because you're gay.
There better be only one gay. I will be testing.
It blows.
I thought it was eSports Express at first when I was reading it.
That this is happening. Now I wanna. Now I know this isn't a Riot issue, okay? And this is where Mitch, don't hate Riot for this.
Yeah, Riot did tweet afterwards.
Yeah, I'm not. Riot have addressed this issue. Have you got the tweet to hand to save me finding it?
I know they said that all. Oh, here we go. LGBT players are welcome at all official LoL tourneys. We work with partners to ensure consistency with our values across all regions.
But what does that mean they're going to do about it?
Probably, well, there's nothing they can actually do about it, right? If Garena were mega anti-LGBT, they could just say no because they're a subsequent country, right?
But I mean, this is what I'm saying. Surely Riot could say, if you're going to keep that current skill set, we're not going to allow you to run a tournament for our game.
I'm not sure what the balance is. Like, I'm pretty sure Garena could just say,
I'll tell you the balance. It's four women and 1 gay. That's the balance. I think we've established that, Sam. No more than 1 gay.
And no subbing in another gay trying to sneak past.
And also, even if you're straight but transgendered, I'm lumping you in with the gays. So you're in with the gays now. So yeah. I don't know. I mean, okay. I remember when Riot agreed to have part of Worlds in Singapore, and I wrote an article saying that the fact that it's even if it isn't particularly enforced. You know, that they do have a law there, which of course, you know, they can technically punish you under law for being homosexual. And I, you know, Riot have said many times that, you know, they're inclusive, you know, they're all about diversity, and they wouldn't tolerate any form of you know, homophobic abuse. And you know, they even put that little thing, you know, the tribunal unanimously decides to punish homophobic and racist slurs. You know, you can get up to 2 years in prison for kissing, you know, another man in Singapore. I mean, again, it's not enforced, but it can happen. And you know, I don't know why Riot wouldn't be a bit more upset about this.
Yeah.
You know, because that is really fucking
It doesn't
bad.
even seem that they're gonna try and, well, they say they kind of do, but what I saw this as is just distancing themselves. They're like, we're Riot, they're Garena, you know, we love everyone, but the other guys, it's nothing to do with us, but we'll try and talk to them.
Yeah, you know, it's just, you know, it's just, you know, again, I'm aghast that Riot wouldn't come out and sever all ties like immediately, or but you know, put some measure in, or say the tournament, you cannot use our game for a tournament that effectively endorses homophobia and hate towards transgender people like that. I can't get my head around it. So, you know, laughing and joking aside, surely Riot have got to take a stand on that. Surely.
Hopefully.
Well, you know,
surely.
Well, you know, honestly, if they don't, I'll be aghast, like truly appalled, because that is just fucking insane. That's allowed to happen. Anyway, I think we'll wrap it up there. But yeah, so basically, you know, if you are playing in the Iron Solari League. In fact, actually, if you are playing in the Iron Solari League, you know, I'd love to hear from you. If you know any females that are playing in there, be they gay or otherwise, I'd love to hear from them actually, and get their take on it. We'd really love to do that. But also as well, you know, just putting this out there, maybe everyone should just fucking boycott it and tell them to stick it up their ass, and maybe everyone should start boycotting every event they fucking run because they're a piece of shit anyway. You know, like, you know, everyone knows that Garena's done all sorts of fucking terrible things in the past, and fuck them, you know, like, just saying. That's probably what I'd do, but you know, whatever. Hopefully Riot will have a bit more of a definitive ruling and say on that, because that is easily one of the most ridiculous things I've read in 2015. But with that, on that note, I think we will end the show. One of my regular fans has tweeted at me saying the show needs to close with the circle jerk VOD about Forgiven and Reddit, because that thing was hilarious. What are the rules, Sam? Can we play other people's YouTube videos, or is that naughty?
Maybe. I'm not sure. Depends.
Well, no, I won't do it, but I'll certainly.
We'll drop the link.
It's by, is it Night Slut 3?
Yeah, Night Slut 3.
I always want to call him Night Slut, so I don't have to say the word slut, but yeah, it is Night Slut 3. He made this video about Forgiven. Now, I will say this, some of us on a show called First Blood did say Forgiven was going to be one of the top AD carries in his region.
The only proof I have is I had him in my fantasy team when he was in Copenhagen Wolves. Live the dream, boys.
So yes, you know, but I urge you to look at that video. It does show exactly what the Reddit hive mind is like. And you know, when the jerk's with you, it's with you, and when it's against you, it's against you. Something I know all too well. Now, and I see a lot of people spamming, you know, the hey Garena for is there any, look guys, because there's 1,200 of us here. Is there any way we can really fuck with them? Like, is there any way we can really fuck with them? I don't know. Tell you what, like, I want to fuck with them a little bit. So, can we do a mass spam of their Twitter? Like, what's Garena's Twitter? I'm serious. What the fuck? Let's find Garena. Is it Garena LOL or Garena Online Gaming?
Garena Online, I think. Wait, but that has like no followers, and that was last season 2010.
Okay, let's.
Garena lol, yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently
Well,
official.
okay. So I don't know which
None of them
one.
get used though.
Yeah. When was the last time they posted? December 28th on the Garena one. You know. Well, fuck it. I mean, there's got to be something we
I'll
can
have to
do.
find another way to abuse them.
No. Well, let me just see if there's any tweets at them.
Oh, I just found Garena Philippines, but this is for the actual company Garena. Oh wait.
Yeah. Well, look, I tell you what, I think we need to mobilize. I think we'll do it for First Blood tomorrow. What we'll do is we'll organize a mobilized harassment on social media by any means possible, because I just can't really let that slide. It's really pissed me off actually reading it out, and I even laughing about it. I kind of feel a little bit dirty, like
Yeah.
it's so fucking shit. So perhaps some of you guys in the chat can think of a way to really fuck with them. I'll get some ideas as well. But yeah, let's just fuck with them. I certainly, if I had a Garena employee, and here's what I would do, Sam. These are the lengths I'm going to go to. I'd do whatever I had to do to make them fall in love with me, and then I'd make them gay.
The maker of the gay clause gets gayed.
I'm just kidding. Obviously, it just I don't know. It's so fucking bad that's allowed to stand. So I think we should fuck with them. We'll find a way to fuck with them. And we'll do it tomorrow. So we are going to do First Blood tomorrow. Broken Shards in the chat, and I'm not calling for DDoSes. That's illegal, kids. Don't do that. But yeah, we'll be doing a First Blood tomorrow. As you probably heard, Josh hasn't been very well lately. He had another seizure. We're all wishing him well. Josh won't be on the show. We're going to have an interesting guest, which I won't reveal. Maybe because we don't have one. Or maybe we do. Maybe we do. But Randall's back. We're going to do a show tomorrow. That's when we'll drop the Garena bomb. Until then, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. It's been fun. It's a blast as always. Thanks to all the callers. Thanks to Odee. Thanks to eSports for just being a wonderful industry to work in. It's got everything. Drama, homophobia.
Shit eating.
Yeah. People shitting in each other's mouths. Angry mobs. It's just another day in paradise for me. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching Trash Talk. We will see you tomorrow for First Blood. Peace.